Do you think I'm weird?
Definitely.
No, man, seriously. Am I weird?
Yeah, but so what? Everybody's weird. You ready for school?
No.
Junior high. You know what that means. Our next junior won't be split up.
What are you talking about? Why would that happen?
It's not going to be like grammar school, that's why. You're taking your college courses, and me, Teddy, and Vern, well, we'll be in the shop courses with the rest of the retards making ashtrays and birdhouses. You're going to meet a lot of new guys. Smart guys.
Meet a lot of pussies is what you mean.
No, man. Don't say that. Don't even think that.
I'm not going in with a lot of pussies. Forget it.
Well, then you're an asshole.
What's asshole about wanting to be with your friends?
It's asshole if your friends drag you down. You hang with us, you'll just be another wise guy with shit for brains. I mean, you could be a real writer someday, Gordy.
Fuck writing. I don't want to be a writer. It's stupid. It's a stupid waste of time.
That's your dad talking.
Bullshit.
Bull true. I know how your dad feels about you. He doesn't give a shit about you. Danny was the one he cared about, and don't try to tell me different. You're just a kid, Gordy.
Oh, gee, thanks, Dad.
Wish the hell I was your dad. You wouldn't be going around talking about taking these stupid shop courses if I was. It's like God gave you something, man. All those stories that you can make up. And he said, this is what we got for you, kid. Try not to lose it. But kids lose everything unless there's someone there to look out for them. And if your parents are too fucked up to do it, then maybe I should.
After learning that a stranger has been accidentally killed near their rural homes, 4 Oregon boys decide to go see the body. On the way, Gordy, Vern, Chris, and Teddy encounter a mean junkman and a marsh full of leeches as they also learn more about one another and their very different home lives. Just to lark at first, the boys' adventure evolves into a defining event in their lives. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode we'll be covering 1986 Stand By Me, directed by Rob Reiner. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Midnight Double Feature. As you heard, Stand By Me, it's Colin, it's Zohem. How are you guys doing? All right, good for you. Zohem, how are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, you're like, how are you guys doing? I'm just like, are you waiting for an answer?
Yeah. I just love putting it into the crowd and seeing how many people go, good. Oh, fuck. I can't hear me.
I'm good, dude. I'm good. I'm really excited to cover this movie. You know what? It's interesting because I can see, like, you know, we've never had the opportunity to shake hands before, but I know how your mind works because I know you jumped off the podcast 2 weeks ago when we did The Wrestler, and you were like, man, I gotta wash the taste of wrestling out of my mouth. I gotta get some Stephen King in here. I gotta get some Stephen King in here, man. Like, you know,
just having a bad day, going straight to your favorite liquor after a bad day, like, exactly. Old Faithful. Go to
exactly.
that well, you know it'll treat you right.
Exactly. But you know what? Like, it was interesting because you I think you mentioned this a while back before we talked about covering Stand By Me. And we've, you know, as much as you love Stephen King, and I like Stephen King, I'm a very casual fan. Mm-hmm. We've only ever covered one movie, like that's based off a Stephen King book, and that's Misery.
And it's not one of the top tier. Like I mean, compared to like Shining, you know, it.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that because they're kind of like, yeah, it's going to lead into my kind of like opening impressions when we get to it. But like, yeah, like Misery is a fantastic movie, and we sucked it off really well with Jess from LSG Media.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, like, and it's interesting. This is directed by Rob Reiner as well, so it's just like, holy shit, dude! Like, both of them are directed by Rob Reiner,
right?
But yeah, fuck. All right, sorry, I blew my kind of like load.
No, well, they're friends too. Like Rob Reiner and Stephen King, and same thing with Frank Darabont and Stephen King. They're all, you know, they're all. I think that Stephen King will. He said before that he will sell his short story copyrights to like film students who want to make something for $1. So he'll find an old short story and be like, hey, here you go. So I actually, on Audible today, got different seasons, and it has At Pupil, it has this, it has, I think, Shawshank and something else, but I got it. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I'm almost finished with Christine, and I looked it up, and I've read about 12 or 13 books this year, and of those 12 or 13, like eight of them were Stephen King. It was like Misery. Yeah, definitely. I think I read Misery, The Outsider. Like, this was a big year of like me reading a bunch of Stephen King stuff. I'm almost all the way done with Christine. But all in all, I mean, this was, besides it, like this kind of stuff, and I'm sure you've never seen this. It's called Sometimes They Come Back. It was a made-for-TV movie based off a Stephen King short story. And Sometimes They Come Back, it and this movie share an older, younger brother dynamic, and one of them has died. Georgie and it's, John Cusack in this one. And Sometimes They Come Back, it's the character's older brother. So it's kind of like a recurring theme that you see in a lot of his stuff. And I'm just segueing right into my thoughts here because fuck it, and everybody loves Stephen King. If you haven't listened to the show before, I'm a huge Stephen King fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're not going to really plug the socials, I guess. Let's just fucking get into it. But like, if you do want to follow us, check out the show notes. Everything that you need to know ever is in the show notes always. So go check it out. The one thing that I guess we should plug is probably our Patreon. If you want to hear more from us, head to patreon.com/midnight.
I know. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I like that Patrick Harrington has started the hashtag Cream for King, because that's what I blew past like socials. I blew, like, you mentioned Stephen King, and I was just like, just
you just kind of like exploded like a dying star, dude.
Just the dog running across the junkyard, like
literally.
No, I'm a huge
balls.
I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I love this movie. I've never read the I guess the short story or the novella, The Body.
The novella.
But all in all, I think so I can kind of look at this objectively as of like, I haven't read what it's based off of. It's like I'm way more familiar, and it's, I guess, same thing with Shawshank, but very, very similar. This movie's fantastic. This is, I mean, if this is not a damn perfect film, what is? I'm like, what is a perfect film if this is not a perfect movie? It's got good guys, bad guys, adventure, everything, but really, I guess, kind of like romance, but it's a coming of age. It's a periodic thing. It's got so much cool stuff in it. That's like, man, who would have really thought that Stephen King would have done something like this, And that's why I think they actually ditched The Body, because it just sounded too weird. But I fucking love this movie. This was a staple growing up. The tragedy of like River Phoenix hangs over this, like Brandon Lee and The Crow. It's always there, like knowing that his character dies later on. And right as the movie starts, he gets fucking stabbed in the throat and dies. Like, holy fuck. But also, how many stars are in this? Jerry O'Connell? Like, what the fuck? Like, dude grew up to be like Superman. Like, he looks like fucking Superman. And I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on Will Wheaton. Dude, River, and of course, Corey, I don't know which one.
Probably the most Corey Feldman. Will Wheaton's probably the most, I guess, successful out of all of them. I mean, because obviously River Phoenix didn't survive past 23. But like, I mean, Corey Feldman, you don't really hear much from these days. But
he was huge then.
Will Wheaton's out there. Yeah, he was huge then, absolutely. But Will Wheaton right now, I mean, like, he was a big part of the Big Bang Theory. He was in Star Trek Next Gen. He's got a lot of nerd cred. Like, he does the audio books for Ready Player One and just recently released Ready Player Two. So he's out there.
He would be if you had to do Stranger Things in the 80s, he would be my Will Byers without a doubt.
Nice.
He looks so much like, I think his name's Noah, Schnapp or something, the actor's name. Anyways, love this movie. I'm sure I would end up liking the short story, or the novella. I can't remember a time when I like to always kind of think like, when is the first time I ever saw this? And for this, I really can't put that together. I don't know when it happened. I don't think it even really matters, because it has always been a staple of like this and it. Sometimes They Come Back is free on YouTube. If you ever want to watch this, it's on YouTube. It's like an hour and a half long. It's got like Tim Matheson and some other people in it, but it's really, really good. I think this is probably the best movie. I mean, Shawshank is probably the best movie adaptation, but like honestly, it's the ones like it and The Shining. Like, yeah, I love those, but goddamn, Shawshank, Green Mile, Misery, Stand by Me, and it's like, dude, those four are almost nothing to do with Stephen King's like horror shit, you know. And like all of those are stories about people and their lives and the tragedy and stuff that can befall, you know, people. And I think that's so fucking interesting that it's not his best film adaptions are not some guy in a hotel swinging an axe. It's so different. And I appreciate that. You know, I appreciate the fact that it's like a multifaceted kind of guy. And, you know, there's actually a really good book that I've had that I haven't finished, but it's called Stephen King Goes to the Movies. So they actually take, I think it's Shawshank, The Mist, and, you know, 2 or 3 other ones. They put them into a little like companion book. And I read on that a little bit. And I read some of Shawshank, and it's really fucking graphic, dude. Talking about like guys getting, you know, assaulted and shit. And I'm like, that shit's hard for like any kind of sexual assault is hard for me to like read or watch. Just like reading about it in the book, I'm like, oh fuck, like that just because your mind plays that theater of the mind shit. But you know what is there to say about this movie? I think this is a great coming of age movie. I think this has a lot to do with, you know, obviously death and loss, but also death in and of itself. For me, what's interesting about this movie is that death, it's just it's a change. It is a physical change, and also it's the same way that these boys are physically changing through their lives. It's the metamorphosis of the, you know, of the caterpillar into the butterfly. You know, you see a before and after kind of even in death and in life with these characters. So I think that's really interesting. I think that you come for like this coming of age thing and you walk away with something a lot more. You know, it's not just like a silly adventure, fun time, like kind of, it's not like Without a Paddle, you know, with Seth Green. It's actually kind of got a lot of heart and a lot of spirit to it. And it's very hard to think of like a lot of movies that are like Stand By Me. But, you know, that kids and bikes on the 80s and 50s thing was like it's still a big like subculture, but it's awesome to see something like this that's even prevalent in like Paper Girls and Stranger Things. You know, it's not just a kids on bike movie about kids that fight monsters. It's kids dealing with the monsters in their day-to-day life. And I think that's what's really fucking cool about this. The relationship's a little weird. I was never like, this guy's that was Chris and he was our leader. And I'm like, you had a leader? Like you took orders from somebody? And I was like, I don't understand that concept, but yeah, I guess it was just me and my friends. Sometimes their closeness is a little unbelievable, but it's okay. It's possible, you know, it's not unbelievable. I guess it's possible, but it feels a little heavy sometimes, but it's also part of the charm of the movie. And I'm totally okay with that. But that's my thoughts. Has this the first time that you've seen this, or have you seen this before?
No, I had seen this before. So yeah,
okay,
like this is, I guess I'll just kind of like lead into my history of it. So, when I was younger, man, I guess probably like when I was 11, 12, 13, somewhere around that age, in my spare time, dude, I used to just kind of like troll through IMDb and just like, you know, look at movies and what they were about. Yeah. And, you know, like just kind of like reading reviews and just kind of like building up the mythology of like movies that I wanted to see, you know? So Shawshank, The Green Mile, and this Stand By Me were the 3 kind of like prestige Stephen King movies in my head. Like, you know, like when I was a kid, I was just like, that's the trio. And at this point I had already seen Shawshank Redemption. I'd seen Green Mile, but this movie for some reason just kept eluding me. Like, you know, I don't know why. I just never went and I just never saw this movie. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I think 2016, 2015. And it's interesting because LSG covered it. And that's when I decided to get off my ass and fucking watch it.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah. And, man, I ended up loving it. You know, like in 2015, here's the thing, right? So I was 21, right? So I'm not really, I was viewing this movie for the first time as a 21-year-old, and I was just like, oh, yeah, you know, like I kind of dismissed it, I think. Like I was just like, oh, it's just a couple of kids. Like it's a fun movie, whatever. But man, like this, watching it this time around, to me, this might be the most depressing movie we've ever covered in my life.
I don't know. We covered End of Watch.
Dude, I would rather 10 End of Watches and Prisoners than
what?
This. I mean, like,
are you kidding?
No, listen to me. I'm not saying that they're better. I'm not saying that they're better.
No,
like,
no. But in terms
It's
of tone.
no, it's not even in terms of tone. It's the way that it kind of like leaves me after, like feeling afterwards. Like I'm just
yeah, kind of just like
holy
I need
shit,
to take
dude.
a shower and go outside for a walk, like kind of thing.
Because like I am someone who, dude, I am someone who is shit scared of his age. Like, you know, I'm not even kidding. In 12 days, I turned 27 years old, and
Nice.
like things like that, dude. Like, you know, getting older and like having to deal with like certain expectations and all that stuff. Like it just it doesn't, it bothers me. It gets to me, and like when it's in film and it's done so effectively like this, it's just like holy shit, dude. Like it's just taxing. And not only that, but there is a lot in this movie that I really identify with. Like I had a friend who was my best friend for a very long time, and after we left high school and we went our own separate ways in university, we hung out like once a year, maybe twice a year, and then we dropped off altogether. And it was just like, holy shit, dude. Like that is literally like our relationship. Like, you know, it's literally the relationship between River Phoenix and Will Wheaton in this movie. And it was just like, man, like this movie kind of like really hit me hard. But like, I agree with what you said, man. Like, this is not the first thing you'd think of when you're thinking about Stephen King movies, right? I mean, like,
Right.
you know, like, what, you're talking about that guy who did Pet Sematary? Like, you're talking about that guy who did The Shining? Because the first thing that comes to my mind whenever someone says Stephen King, it's immediately my mind goes to The Overlook. Like, it doesn't go to Shawshank, which it should, because that's probably his most well-known adaptation. But for me, it goes straight to The Shining because it's horror and it's probably one of the best horrors out there, right? So it's one of the most prestige horror films out there. So Stand By Me is definitely not something that I think about. But like, man, like those three movies, The Green Mile, Shawshank, and this, they cover life and death and expectations of life and what people should feel and how they should feel at a certain age. You know, Green Mile talks about how you should feel when you're facing death, right? Like when you're literally in the face of death, and just like what the kinds of feelings that you're kind of like experiencing. Shawshank goes through this whole thing about like freedom and liberation and, you know,
Redemption.
like redemption, right? There's just so much in that movie that I can't even like sum up in a sentence.
I can't
that movie.
wait to cover that thing.
I know. When we cover that thing, it'll be 5 hours long. So,
I should. I'm so mad because I threw Back to the Future in and won for the 200 episode. I was like, god damn it, I could have done Shawshank. And it's like, but if I'd have done Shawshank, I would have, god damn, I should have done Back to the Future. Like, that's the way your mind works as a podcast. You're like,
exactly.
What did we do the other day? We're like, hey man, we should cover this movie. We're like, hey, we did that like a year and a half ago, and we just like the Tim Allen in the mirror.
RoboCop. I think you said RoboCop, and I was like, dude, we've covered RoboCop. What are you talking about, or something?
Right. I was like, god damn it.
This is such a great movie, dude, and I'm 100% there with you. This is a near perfect movie with outstanding characters, outstanding young actors, right? I mean, like,
hell yeah,
all four of these guys are firing on all cylinders. Kiefer Sutherland is outstanding. The way this is shot and filmed and directed by Rob Reiner, it feels so conventional. Like, you know, it feels so like, oh, just put the camera here and here are the kids just walking. Like, but everything adds to it. Like, you know, like this, we were talking just before we jumped onto, like on the recording, that this is only an hour and 24 minutes. And it feels like they get so much done in that short amount of time.
Yes.
And the trek that these kids take from Castle Rock to the body feels like a cross-country journey. Like, you know, it feels like they've crossed the entire United States. And not only that, but in what looks like sweltering heat. Like, it looks so hot, dude, when they're walking through, like when they're walking on the tracks and shit. And I'm watching this on like a hot as fuck day. Like, it is fucking scorching outside. So yeah, man, this is an incredible movie. I'm glad you chose it. I think this is always going to get chosen by one of us. You know, and look, the fact that I've only seen this twice doesn't talk about its quality at all. Like, there are movies out there that I will watch only once, and I wholly recognize that they are masterpieces, but I don't want to feel that way after a movie ever again.
Yeah.
The other movie that I can think of is, I think, 12 Years a Slave. Like, I was like, okay, this movie is a fucking masterpiece, but there is no reason for me to watch this again. Like, it
Right.
is just
That's like
horrifying.
I think
Yeah.
I bought Jacob's Ladder, watched it once. It's like, you can take this back. I'm good. And I was like,
Exactly.
that's a fucking mind fuck. Requiem for a Dream's the same way. It's just it's just a mind fuck, man. Fucking is that? Yeah, it's Darren Aronofsky. God, Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah,
I've heard some people
Aronofsky.
say it about Black Swan. They're like, I had only seen Black Swan once. It's like, that's understandable. I've seen Requiem. I believe it. Like, I've never seen Black Swan, but
I've seen.
yeah, I think we said this last. Yeah, but
yeah, let's get into this, dude.
yeah, are you fucking done?
This
Are
is
you done?
Yeah,
No,
I'm
I'm
fucking done. All right, you piece of shit.
No, okay,
do you want to suck off Stephen King some more?
Dude, I'll tell you one thing that is kind of weird, actually. The fact that this movie was like a $7 to $8 million budget, it made like 55 back or something. Like it made around 50 million,
nice.
but that's still kind of modest. Like for a Rob Reiner, Stephen King joint in 86, like I feel like I'm like, how did this not make like $150 million at the box office? It's kind of 86. That's a big year. You got people reading Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, and
it is somewhat niche though. I mean, like, look, if you don't market this correctly, because like there are two ways to approach this movie, right? You can approach this movie as just like a kids movie, right? Like a couple kids as a gang go out to find a dead body, or as an adult, you kind of like watch it as like this, I guess, really reflective movie about the friends that you had when you were kids and the way that your life is now. Like, it's just not the same thing. So I think, it being like looked at that way might have been somewhat off-putting to adults. I don't know, because like it's also kind of like, who are you making this for? Like, there are no female characters in this movie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, there are no like is this an adult movie? Like, there's a fuckload of swearing in this movie. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it sits in that kind of like nebulous of like, is this for kids? Is this for adults? Is this for teenagers? I think, yeah. Like, honestly, now that I look back at it, I think that this is more of a more geared towards adults. Like, this works a lot more effectively as a reflective piece.
I wouldn't mind like my nephew sitting down and watching it. He's 10. Like I wouldn't mind that, because he's seen like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like not violence or anything, but it's also like, would you understand? I think there's like your part A and then part B screens. Like, I saw this young. It was just a funny story of these kids who were charming, going and finding a dead body. But as an adult, there's a lot of different stuff that you pick up on. Walking down the tracks, following this track is like a metaphorical. It's them moving on in their lives. It's this feeling of locomotion. It's this feeling of constant moving. And it's a symbol for, like you said, life and death and stuff, of like the train does not stop. There is no stopping the train, really. So it's like it's very metaphorical of all of that stuff. And it is one of those things where it's like just death. It just lingers over the whole fucking movie several times. There's a lot of father issues. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't get told that, I mean, like, with the newspaper, like that Chris Chambers has died, he got stabbed. You view the later scenes between Chris and Gordy very differently. Like, like it is very important that the movie lays out really early on that Chris has passed away in such a violent manner. Like, like it
What's
is,
the reason
it is super
why?
important.
Yeah, he's reflecting and shit. Like, I kind of wish they hadn't. I kind of would. I mean, it would kind of be like a gut punch, though, to be like, oh, the reason I'm reminiscing about him is the fact that he died. And it's like, fuck.
That's actually not bad. Actually, like, you think, okay, so let's kind of like workshop this, right? So you get the shot with Dreyfuss in the car at the start, and he's reflecting, and then it goes back. He doesn't look at the newspaper, and then the movie ends, and he's typing away at the computer. Like, we come back. And he looks over to his left, and there's a newspaper of with the headline. Right. So it's like, I wonder if that would have been more effective. But I don't know, man. Like, I like movies that really kind of like set the whole like
kind of flip it on its head.
Right, a very crucial piece of information, and you are going to view something incredibly, like, so much different than you probably would have if we hadn't given this information to you.
Right. I kind of wish it's like I wish I had those two versions to watch of like, let me watch the one where I don't know what's going on and then tell you and get back. I mean, either way, it's an interesting choice because they invert that. It's like, no, we're going to give you this information here and now to see this and like why this, but it's also like, you know that he dies, but they don't tell you exactly till the end how he dies. And that's also like, yikes, like that, like it kind of like, Jesus Christ.
Just briefly, dude, I went down a little bit of a, because I knew River Phoenix died young, right? I knew that. I just never knew how. I thought he got stabbed, which he didn't. Like I
what, he overdosed?
I think I kind of like, yeah, he overdosed. I think I kind of like melded his death in this with the real life. Yeah, dude, I went down a fucking rabbit hole, man. Like he overdosed at Johnny Depp's club called the Viper Room. Yeah, and it was Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers that took him to hospital.
Oh shit, man! Talk about just a star-studded horrible event. Like, and the crazy thing is, looking at
Joaquin was there. Joaquin called the police.
Really? How old is Joaquin Phoenix at this time? I mean,
I don't know. Joaquin was younger than River.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And River was 22 when he died. I'm like, how old your brother? Like 18?
Very briefly, and very sweetly, Joaquin and Rooney Mara just had their baby, and they named him River, which is very sweet.
I saw that, and I was like, he said, he seems like, that whole family's real interesting, and I wonder where River Phoenix's career would have gone, you know? Just wonder what, you know, imagine River Phoenix in The Dark Knight as the Joker. Like, fuck, man, that would be something so special and like
I just watched The Last Crusade for like the millionth time like 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah,
because he's in the opening, and like he's so good, dude. He's so charismatic. He had such a great career out of it. You know, there's something about River Phoenix where it's like there's a musician. His name is Jeff Buckley. I love Jeff Buckley. He's amazing. He does a really, really famous cover of Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. But the guy had a voice like you wouldn't believe, and he played lead guitar the whole time, like and a virtuoso, an amazing musician. And he jumped in the Memphis River, like waiting on his buddies, and fucking drowned. And he was like 27. And you're like, what the fuck? Like and it's this crazy. It's almost seeing these people die so young that you mourn for the loss of like what could possibly have been, not what happened. Like, you know, obviously what happen's tragic, and you know, I'm glad that we got to see him and what he was able to do in that short time. But there's also like just the mourning of like, dude, you imagine, you know, him working with fucking Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan and like getting these people, and like, or would that be the type, would he stick to like lower stuff, or not lower, like would he stick to more indie kind of stuff? You know, it's very, very interesting. But either way, Joaquin Phoenix is amazing. You know, I think the last thing I saw him in was, I think we watched Joker, and then we saw You Were Never Really Here, and I liked both of those a lot. But yeah, Joaquin, especially, God, fucking Gladiator, dude, love it. My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius. You need to see Her. You need to see the movie Her.
Really dude, that is on my list. Her and The Master. I have not seen The Master, and
I've not seen it either. Yeah.
Apparently, it's somewhat based on like Scientology. I've heard. I might be speaking out of school, but either way,
he won an Oscar for that, I believe.
I mean, he's an amazing. I was kind of like not on the Joaquin train for a long time, and then eventually I was like, yeah, this guy I like. I was his documentary he did where he's like snorting coke and trying to be a rapper, and I was like, dude, that's like Andy Kaufman level of like comedy. I was like, that's amazing, dude. And I had a whole level of respect for him after that. But
interestingly, he's playing. I know you're trying to segue into the movie. I'm sorry, but dude, he's playing fucking Napoleon in a Ridley Scott movie coming up.
Oh wow, Ridley Scott. I wonder how that'll be.
Yeah, well, it could be either 50-50. I don't know, but.
Somebody posted something.
If it's good Gladiator, Ridley Scott, then it'll be great. But.
Right. Somebody posted something in the after party about movies that never got made, and one of them was, Full Metal Jacket.
Kubrick's Napoleon.
Kubrick's Napoleon. So I wonder if that's like a reshopped idea or something. Anyways, here we are, guys. We're jumping into fucking Stand By Me. You know, what I'm going to kind of do is for the first, because we really, and this is something that not only helped me, honestly, as a podcaster taking these notes, it honestly showed me the strength of what this movie can possibly be. So this movie, by the 13-minute mark, you are introduced to all 4 characters. You know where they live. You know what kind of people they are. You know about Ray Brower and the dead body, and we meet Kiefer Sutherland in 13 minutes, and they have the gun. Yeah. That is insane. That is, to introduce 4 characters like that, it's like, it feels kind of like, you know, like Goodfellas-ish in the way of him narrating and stuff. I thought he was really obnoxious, and I love that. It just really shows you, like, look at Shawshank, look at this, look at Goodfellas, look at that fucking narration that works so well when you apply it the right way, and then watch like the theatrical cut of Blade Runner when it's Harrison Ford like doing these terrible voiceovers and stuff. But we're introduced, we got Chris, we've got Vern, we've got Teddy, and we've got Gordy. Right. Because I keep wanting to say Will Wheaton, and I'm like, no, it's
right.
Gordy. And they're all kind of stereo.
But you don't. It's not even just like an introduction. By the 13-minute mark, you get a very good sense of who these kids are. Like,
and where we're going too. It's
right,
like,
exactly.
I love it, dude. It's so fantastic, and they're almost they're not stereotypes, but they're archetypes. And Vern is, he's a fucking wet end. Gordy, it's just kind of a normal kid on the right side of the tracks, and Chris is a normal kid on the wrong side of the tracks. They're almost the same person split down the middle in some ways. It's really interesting.
And Teddy is suicidal. I mean, okay, all right, let's talk about Corey Feldman a little bit. I don't know too much about Corey Feldman. I know that he was molested when he was younger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's really kind of like interesting because he plays a very angry character.
Yeah.
Like Teddy comes off as very angry and very standoffish, more so than the other kids, right? Like he is hiding something, like, like you kind of like, you feel it. And I wonder, with Rob Reiner in casting for Teddy, I wonder if like that was kind of like taken into account with Corey Feldman.
I know at the time reading this that Rob Reiner was like, we literally just got kids who could like play themselves, and these kids are really like just an exaggerated version of themselves, and that's why it ended up working out so well. Is you have these kind of Corey Feldman, not that he was a crazy guy or anything, but you watch him in The Burbs, he's like, hey, what's up, man? He's got this energy to him. And I think that makes sense. Like, you can't really apply that same energy to like Vern. It's like, now you need someone who's kind of a wet end. Like, you need someone who's somewhat of a wet blanket. Like, and I think that whole shit with Corey Feldman is interesting too. There's some crazy shit. I know people are like, dude, he's fucking crazy. There's a lot of that shit that guy is like being very legit about. And like, it's fucking nuts. Look into it sometime, but it's, I back that guy 100% when it comes to that shit. It's like, the crazy thing too, they were like, what about Michael Jackson? He's like, never, not once. And I was like, damn, like, this guy's selling everybody down the river. I'm like, I mean, rightfully so. But I'm like, if Michael Jackson did something, I just assume if you're going to start throwing out names, it would probably come up. But speaking of which, Michael Jackson, they almost got him to remake the Stand By Me song for the end of this movie. And I was like,
oh shit.
And done. I can't imagine. And like just a little, I know you remember. But yeah, I can't imagine that. But anyways, we're really introduced to everybody. Teddy, Vern, Gordy, Chris, these archetypes that they are. See them smoking cigarettes, telling dirty jokes. It's like, yeah, I mean, except for maybe smoking cigarettes. That's basically what I was doing at that age. We were telling each other, dead baby jokes and shit like that. Playing Halo and, just rolling people's houses and stuff. That was pretty common.
Pretty
for us.
innocent. Like, these are, and this is something that kind of like really stuck out to me, especially during the scene where we see Ace and his friends, just like with the baseball bat, just destroying mailboxes.
Right.
Like that kind of like stuck out to me because these kids, I'm not saying that they'll eventually become like Ace and Ace's friends, but they like, that is a thing with age, right? Like what these kids are doing, in terms of like smoking cigarettes, they're not harming anyone. It's all kind of like a bit kind of like wide-eyed innocent. Whereas, like, what Ace and his friends are doing are somewhat kind of like malicious and like really intentionally, I guess, harmful. So
right.
it kind of strikes me as like you are that close to being the age of what Ace and his friends are doing. Like, like you're kind of like you're about to enter that particular time of your life.
Right. Yeah. 100%. I think there's a bit of foreshadowing there of like this is the possibilities of what you could possibly be doing. And right away, like I said, we're introduced to our characters. There's also, we get John Cusack as his older brother, Denny, who has passed away, said he was in a Jeep accident. I'm like, is that different from a car accident? I'm sorry. He was in a Ford accident. It's like, does that matter? Is that a detail we need to know? And of course, a lot of this, I love this movie, but the characters are kind of over the top a little bit much. Like John Cusack and River Phoenix and Gordy, they're almost like the myth of the American boy, like kind of thing. Like I'm a big fan of The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. Absolutely love it. If you want to get to my soft spot, talk about that animated movie with me. But in that, there's this kid named Kip or something. And Kip is, the kid, he who could skip rocks the farthest, eat the most popcorn, and chew the most bubble gum, like this American kind of kid. But it's like these characters are really not, I don't know. I don't want to say it's not relatable, but they're almost too perfect. Like Denny's brother is he's nice at every aspect that we see him at. And I get it, that's just kind of the way that he is, and we're supposed to like him. So that's why. But at the same time, it just felt like these kids, for how young they were, I was like, dude, I was not having conversations like this. And I was not like crying to my friends about what my parents were doing. But I guess I never, I say that as someone who grew up with a pretty remotely normal childhood. I didn't have anything compared to these guys,
That's something I actually thought about, because I was like, man, these kids are very, very aware of their situations. Like, like they're a little, I guess they're a little too young to kind of like really understand what they're kind of growing through. And they're very aware of what they're going through. And they're very like able to vocalize this to their friends. And I get that you like, in terms of like a film, well, you need to be able to get these characters to express how they feel to each other, right? Like,
especially at a buck 28. Like, yeah, this
right,
movie has to do that quickly.
Exactly. And look, it's not the most subtle movie. Like, there's not that much subtlety to it at all. Like, it's kind of like, what you see is what you get. But like, also, I don't mind it. Like, I don't mind these kids being really intensely aware of like the situation that they're going through and who they are as people and who they are as kids and who they're eventually going to become. And then, like the scene, the big scene later, right? Like when we have Chris crying to Gordy, like all of that kind of like shows me that it's just these kids are so not ready to grow up. Like, like they're just like,
right.
This is our kind of like last ditch effort. And in our last ditch effort, we're going to be aware of what we're going to potentially leave behind, So like, because if you're doing something for the last time ever, you're going to be somewhat reflective. Like, you're going to be, oh shit, man, I'm never going to be able to have this chance again. Like, like I'm
right.
And maybe not as kids, like, like that might be a bit of a stretch, but I know for me, right? Like if I knew that, for example, this was our last podcast ever, like I would be very like highly attuned, like I'd be very reflective on it, like I'd be very like, oh man, like I don't really know about this. So, like the emotions will start like seeping in. And like granted, yes, these are kids and they might not be able to have the capacity to do that. But yeah, I buy it. I buy it.
No, yeah, I think those are all good points. There's something, the kids are not only aware of their situation, but like I would have never been in this age going like, oh, and next year, I won't see my friend. I would just assume, hey, they'll probably be in the same grade as me,
what? Like, it's interesting. There's a level of like Superbad here, right? I mean, like Superbad, the main plot line is, these guys are eventually going to be able to, like, they're going to separate. They're going to go their separate ways. They're going to go to different colleges. So this is the last one. The last, ditch effort to fuck these girls.
Right.
And yeah, like it's Superbad at that age, that makes sense because they would 100% be aware of their situation.
Right. Well, and there's also something about the fact of like, at my high school, like, cause we did have middle school, I guess, but a lot of those people went to the same high school as me. And there was like the technical path or the university path, but I mean, you're still friends with people. Like you still saw them. You still went to the same building as them. Like Danny and I were, our host Danny and I are like that. Danny and I have been friends ever since like 6th or 7th grade. And we had almost no classes together in high school and hung out all the fucking time. But that core group of friends has not hung out with each other. I mean, people move away, some people live in like Chattanooga and Texas. Like a lot of people have moved, but we still get on Halo and play. Danny will make a Facebook invitation, like a private event, and send it to all of us and say, hey, it's time to play some Halo. And everybody's like, all right, I mean, I guess I got to call in sick at work, but fuck it. I'm going to be there. But yeah, so I get it from that kind of point of view from their relationship. But I never had this kind of relationship with any friend ever, crying and like, and I'd be like, dude, stop fucking touching me. And I'm like, I'm just one of those people where I'm like, I don't mind somebody coming in like faking a nut tap and you jump and you and you laugh, but like putting your arm around and be like, you just fucking stop, like stop touching me. I'm not like a touchy person in that way.
A nut tap.
Oh yeah, where they come in and act like they're gonna hit you. We used to do that all the time.
Oh,
so
we used to do it all the time, but we called it sack wax.
Sack wax. I love this, like the small things that we nut tap,
the cultural differences.
Wax. Love it, dude. Fucking love it. But right, like I said, in these 15 minutes, Denny is dead. We've got these kids looking for the body of Ray Brower. We also see, Gordy's relationship with his parents. We get a lot of information on a lot of these characters. Right away we see that Vern has a brother, and his brother and Chris's brother are a member of this gang. It's a lot of stuff, like right off the bat. That's why I was just kind of like in one foul swoop. I just want to like out these like first 15 minutes.
No,
it's
absolutely, and I think it's best. Yeah, that's such a good approach because we can kind of like pick apart in that 15 minutes what we kind of like want to talk about. Dude, I love the holes in the basement, dude. Like
yes, even looking
house,
for 9 months,
dude. That house is now going to collapse because of all the structural fucking integrity that you destroyed.
Well, and there's something about, again, there's that innocence of just like he had a map and his mom threw it out. Like Vern could have like a little short movie just on that, and I would watch it. But it's just something charming as hell about that. But this is also where we kind of see Gordy is right away, and he's like, "Hey, you want to see a dead body?" And he's like right on it. So it's like there's some kind of like, symbolic closure in that for him of like, getting to, it's like looking at Ray Brower and being like, why did you have to, it's like, I'm able to scapegoat these feelings into Ray Brower at the end of this. And I think that's I love Stephen King's names, by the way. Teddy, Teddy DeChamp.
Oh, dude.
His names are always so good.
Like, dude, I had remembered the names Duchamp and LaChance for so long, dude. Like, I was like, holy shit. Like, not even like the first time I saw it, like, it was just, I remember reading him on IMDb, like when I was trolling IMDb as a fucking 12-year-old. I was like, that is a crazy name. LaChance? Like, what?
Yeah. His names are always like Ben Hanscom from It, Beverly Marsh. Like, his names always sound like they're a little off the beaten path, but they sit real well. Like, if somebody's like, hey, this is your, new coworker, his name's Beverly Marsh, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that sounds believable.
This definitely has a lot of like Stephen King, trademarks, right? I mean, like obviously, Gordy is a writer, right? I mean, like, you're kind of like supplanting Stephen King into Gordy.
It's like it's like Portland, Oregon instead of Portland, Maine.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And that is interesting as well because this is in Castle Rock, Oregon, which I was like surprised at. Like, I mean, like I actually think an executive got it mixed up. I actually think it was supposed to be like in Portland, Maine instead of Oregon.
Well, yeah, because I know that they filmed in Portland. I don't know if they were just like, you know what, we're filming in Oregon. Let's just fucking call it Oregon. It doesn't really matter if it's because Castle Rock is kind of like his made up little land in Maine,
which Rob Reiner used as the name of his production company.
Yeah, I always saw that at the end of Seinfeld.
Yeah, Seinfeld. Yeah, they created Seinfeld. Exactly.
That's awesome, dude. I'll tell you one thing that's interesting about, you brought up, Kiefer Sutherland. Do you want to know what happens to him after Stand By Me? Because I know from reading Needful Things. Needful Things came out in like 1991, I think, is a really, really, really good book. Really, really good book. And basically he goes
can I take a guess?
Well, I tell you what, spoilers. We'll say spoilers if you haven't seen or read a movie or a book that came out in 30 years. But yes, take a crack at it. I just wanted to get that out first.
I'm just going to say that, it wasn't going to be like this massive, like thoughtful thing. I was just going to say that he ODs eventually.
No, not at all. So it's Ace Merrill, I believe is his name. But he ends up basically going to prison for like years, and he goes to Shawshank. And when he gets out, the whole thing of like of Needful Things is a guy who's taking over a town, and he's basically the devil, and he's selling these crazy, like, Twilight Zone crazy items that make people do weird shit. But he was basically, when he gets out of prison, that's when Leland Gaunt, the guy who runs Needful Things, like, employs him to, like, drive a car and make deliveries and stuff like that. And eventually he's killed in Needful Things, but he's like 40 years old. You're like, holy shit, that's fucking Ace Merrill from Stand By Me. And it's like it's kind of did something that I never really seen before. It was like and granted, I haven't read every Stephen King thing ever, but somebody who's in a non-horror sci-fi story transitioning to a supernatural horror sci-fi kind of story. Well, now Tim Robbins is Pop Merrill, who is Ace Merrill's uncle in Needful Things. So Pop Merrill is in Castle Rock season 2, and he's played by Tim Robbins. And I was like, son of a bitch, cool. Dude. I love goddamn shit like that, man. I love when they
got Andy Dufresne for the show. Nice.
Right. I dig it. I fucking really dig it. Just Skarsgård in season 1, you know?
Oh yeah, that's right. Just briefly. So for the longest time between my first watch and this watch, I thought that the kids went out to the dead body because they were kids, because they were like morbidly curious about death. But like that's not really the case, right? That might be an element, but like they actually want prestige, right? Like they want their names in the newspaper, they want the credit. So like I was just like, this time around, like I was like surprised. I was like, man, you know what? It could have worked with just the morbidly curious kids, you know, very curious about death. Like, you know, like let's go poke a stick at it kind of thing. Like you know, like in Scream, right? Like Scream, the principal dies. Let's go see his body. Like, you know,
right?
Yeah, that's kind of like what it reminded me of.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's one of those things that these kids like want the recognition, and they want to see a dead bird or something. You know, they kind of want to see stuff like that. But I love the fact that Gordy eventually hits that part where he's like, maybe this shouldn't be fun. Maybe this shouldn't be a party. And I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. You know, thoughtful and deep. But yeah, basically, as we're picking up after they've decided, hey, we're going to go, you know, check this shit out. You know, they end up kind of pulling some money together. He's like, you have 7 cents? He's like, I haven't found my pennies yet. And just Jerry O'Connell, man, I love that guy. I've never seen him in anything that I was like, he's fucking bad. And I'm like, I've always liked him.
First thing I saw him in was Kangaroo Jack.
All right, well, I take that back. I've never actually seen that. It's like, is that the one with
bad movie? Anthony Anderson?
Yeah, Anthony Anderson.
Michael Shannon.
Yeah. And we get a little bit of insight right away pretty much to Teddy with this fucking train dodge. What the fuck, man? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you can't really tell if it's like a cry for attention or if it's an actual, like, I think he kind of knows that somebody's going to pull him off of there. But yeah, there is something where like, I totally expected this character to be dead at the end of this. I really thought this is the way that it was going to happen. But I was surprised that it didn't, honestly, that Chris is the one who ends up dead. I was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, there's an element that's really haunting to me about Teddy. Like, he seems somewhat suicidal. Like, he seems, you know, maybe suicidal is going a bit too far. Maybe kind of like he wants to feel the rush. Like, you know, he wants to feel like a rush of energy. And like, he strikes me as just this like nervous wreck of a ball of energy. Like, you know, and like he's consistently angry and he's consistently trying to pitch a fight or start a fight. And, you know, like whether it's with the junkyard guy, like, you know, like my father stormed Normandy. Like, you know, like it's just,
he's very
interesting.
prideful.
Yeah, he's very prideful. And like, I don't fully know what to really take away from that, like by the end of the movie. But I've definitely had friends like this. Like, you know, like I've definitely had friends like this who want to be doing very dangerous things to try and like make us, I guess, impressed. But really, we're just like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. Like, you got
shit friends.
Moron.
I can't hang out with those people.
No. I mean, I'm not saying that I have these friends now. I'm saying that I had these friends at this age, like kind of thing. Like, you know, like, it was just like, it's just like, man, like just fuck off. Like, why are you doing this?
Right. You had somebody that always tried to one up. You had always somebody that was trying to just do the craziest shit. Like, man, let's go fucking take a shit on the neighbor's lawn. And like, dude, why?
Yeah.
Why would I want to do that? Like, that's fucking juvenile. I lived next door to a guy like that for a long time. But yeah, right away, we see the train dodge. We see him kind of pull him off. But it's interesting watching Chris be like, you got to skin it, dude. Like, you can dodge it on the way back, but you got to skin it. And that's what I'm saying. Like, there was just nothing about this relationship with these kids that, like, I can relate to at all. My friends were not like this. I was not like, dude, come over here and shake his hand now. Like, my friends would be like, I guess I'm just a very strong. I don't like what people telling me what to do, and I think a lot of my friends are the same way within reason. Like, dude, you got to come over here and make it right. It's like, fuck you, dude. Like, that's like immediately, like, even if I am wrong, like, fuck you. Like, it's just my first reaction to that.
I like it because it's kind of like a tension breaker. Like, I'm the person here in this scene. I am Chris's character. Like, I'm just like, man, like, we've just kind of like yelled at each other, and I need to break the tension, dude. Like, I need you to know that I'm cool, man. Like, so just shake my fucking hand, please. Like, like in that way. Yeah, absolutely. I get that.
I'd have friends argue over like an Xbox controller, and we'd have to like cool off. And I'm like, so a train dodge, I'm not really sure where we'd land on. Like, I don't think I'd hang out with that kid anymore.
Yeah, look, that is a bit wild.
This ain't who's got my rechargeable batteries.
Oh, by the way, very briefly, like, I know we kind of like went past the intro, but that's fine. Like, this, the guy that plays Eyeball, and that's Chris's older brother, right? So Eyeball Chambers. Do you know who this is?
I do not.
So the actor's name is Bradley Gregg. He was in a minor role in Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. He was at that opening scene with River Phoenix. He was part of that gang that chases him.
Oh, okay.
On the train and shit. But more importantly, he was in Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors. He was the subject of our favorite death with the
he's the puppet boy.
He's the puppet boy.
Oh, nice pull. You just like, I feel like we're like trading jabs, and you just like, fucking just like, I was like, son of a bitch. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That's really fun. I always love seeing those connections with stuff. That's really cool. There's something really interesting about, the way that they kind of patch things up. And it's so weird that immediately we're juxtaposed to Keith Vertolen and his gang, and he's like, "Shut the fuck up," and it's like, dude, that is a startling juxtaposition. It just really shows you, even though they're kids and they have nothing but the shirts on their back and they're walking everywhere, they're nothing but all heart, versus like Keith and his gang, they're a fucking gang.
It's more malicious. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like there is a level of intent that's missing between the kids and that is present with the gang. Like, like there is just like, we're being shit kickers because we want to be shit kickers, and we're just gonna have fun. Like, you'll notice that Eyeball is literally drinking while driving. Like, right. I mean, like, that's the thing.
You're a dumbass, man. Like,
exactly. But that's what really struck me. I'm just like, between juxtaposing these two scenes, like, you're kind of like, I think this is what Rob Reiner's intent is. It's just like, these kids are really not that far from becoming these guys. Like, they're right. Very close.
Right. Yeah. It's only, less than 5 years, these kids are going to be driving and stuff. They're, basically they end up getting to this, junkyard. We get the whole story of, oh God, I'm blanking on the dog's name. Chopper Sick Balls. This is so, being from the South, like, there's a lot of folklore and there's a lot of like scary stories and stuff. Like, being from the South, that is one thing that I actually love about being from the South, is there is a lot of like scary stories. There's a lot of folklore. Like, there's a lot of historical stuff that, don't get me wrong, they ignore a lot of other historical important shit, but there's also something about the word of mouth of like storytelling and stories that I really love. And like the legend gets passed on and stuff. And it's oh, go for it. What?
Dude, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, this movie was really, really relatable for me. Not far from our school. I mean, literally just in my suburb, around this time. So, as we're growing up, around fifth grade, there was an old winery in our suburb called Minchinbury. So, winery, like, where they used to make wine and shit. And it was like, I'm not even talking like, it was like old. It was dilapidated. Like, it had these giant gray walls, dude. Like, the walls had come down, and it was kind of like fenced off, right? And there were like cows in there for some reason. There's like animals in there, and it was just like kind of like this urban legend, like in our primary school, dude. When we were just like, man, like that old winery is just creepy as fuck because it looked creepy. Honestly, I wish I could find a photo of it. If I can, I'll post it in the after party. It was like really, really like terrifying walking past it
Yeah.
because like around it, there's just like it's just this giant dilapidated winery that's fenced off, but around it you have residential houses. You have people like families living there, so
Yeah.
it's just like. And you know, there's overgrowth and like a lot of like plants just growing along the walls and shit. And it's like, what the fuck is that? And then like, man, I remember learning in like 5th grade, hearing a story rather that like some kids from our school had like jumped the fence and like went exploring. Like people used to go exploring in there all the time, and they went down like into like the winery, and there was like water, and it was like flooded down there, and it was just like I never went in there. I was just like shit scared, but it was just
Yeah, hell yeah.
It's like because it's the urban legend, right? Like it's the urban legend
Right.
of like this place that is potentially haunted, which we all thought it was. We thought it was haunted. And it sucks, man, because like in hindsight, I wish I had gone now. I wish I'd gone to check it out because they've since, you know, rebuilt over it. Like they've rebuilt, like they've torn it down and like built over like a housing development and shit.
Right.
I guess like, you know, Poltergeist, like, you know, fucking building over like an indoor
Yeah,
ground.
that's a great idea.
Right, exactly. But like, you know, that's like, man, watching this junkyard scene especially really reminded me of the old winery and
Hell
just,
yeah.
you know, walking home from school every day and just seeing it, dude, and like wondering what the fuck was in there and like what kind of like spirits or ghosts, you know, these little white kids.
Oh, dude, 100%. Everybody, I feel like everybody's got that, you know, old Mr. So-and-so's house, like on the hill that's crazy, you know, scary looking and stuff. Yeah, there's something about that mythology that's just, it's so relatable, and it feels like just something so outside of it. Like we had one on my street growing up called something, this lady walks the pike with a sackcloth on her head, and there was this ghost that walked up and down the road with a sackcloth on her head. I was like, that's fucking terrifying. Why don't we have like a leprechaun or something? We have a fucking sackcloth lady like walking down the road. God damn it, the South, you're awful. No, I'm just kidding. But we kind of pick back up where, you know, they get into this, you know, they get into the junkyard. We see him flip the coins, and he's like, oh, what is it? It's like a goozer or something, like when they all flip tails. And there is something actually kind of interesting about it. That's how Buddy Holly died. When they were getting, you know, flipping coins to see who gets on the plane. And, you know, I can't remember who all flipped. I know Buddy Holly flipped and died, and he won that off a coin flip. And it's like, oh shit. I think that's the same way Cliff Burton from Metallica died. I think I might be wrong though, but I'm pretty sure they flipped coins for it. So there's something, even that mythology is just kind of locked in there. But Gordy loses, you know, he's got to go get the food and stuff. And the goochers, that's what he calls it. He's like, oh man, that's a real goocher. And it's like, yeah, these kids sound like they're from like Michigan. Like they sound like 40-year-old white women from Michigan. And like, gosh, you know, that's a real goocher, fellas. But I really dig the scene with him in the store. What do you do? I don't know. Like, wow, what a great, I love the fact that this part of like America has like died off where it's none of your fucking business. Don't talk to my kid like that. Like when I'm in there, like, what the fuck are you doing? But back then this was the way it was. People were very much so like, it was, you know, people would comment, you know, and even, you know, get on to people's kids who you didn't know and shit. And it's like, now that's a huge no-no. Like, I don't care if somebody's kid is punching me in the face. I will not be like, can you get the fuck off? I'm like, hey, can you get your kid? I'm not comfortable saying shit to your kid. But this whole thing of like giving him shit about like, I like the fact that the shop owner is kind of like, I had a brother who died too. He died in Korea. Like, he's kind of trying to reach out to him a little bit. I do like that. But he's also, I feel like this is more kind of nosy, you know, kind of like, so what do you do? How's your brother? I remember this and blah, blah, blah. It's very small townish, and it just really shows that you just can't escape. You can't escape in the way that Chris cannot escape being Eyeball Chambers' brother. He cannot escape being Denny's brother, but in an opposite fashion. I think that's very interesting, and I love that. I really do.
I mean, also the shopkeeper's being a cunt, right? I mean, like, he's just straight up being like come on, dude, is that fucking necessary? Like, you're gonna judge me because of like the status that my brother was at when he passed away? Like, come on, dude. And like, I'm not saying like that this is also relatable, because for me it's not, but I've seen my brother take kind of like Gordy's kind of like mindset in this particular scene, because like like I went to uni. I'm a lawyer, right? I mean, like it was
Mhm.
a thing, and like my brother was not academically inclined. Like we talked about this, I think a very recent episode.
Right.
And like like whenever family would come over, like I'm talking like family that I don't like in terms of like they're very kind of like distant, but they'd still come over, just to catch up with their parents from time to time.
Mhm.
And like they'd be like, oh, so what's Zohab doing? And then my parents would be like, oh, he's a lawyer, blah blah. And they're like, cool, what's Zohab doing? And then they're like, oh, he's doing, he's an electrician, like when like he works like with fiber optic cables. And like you can kind of like see that level of like, oh, that's not as impressive in like, yeah. And it was just
Right.
like, for me, like I never made my brother feel bad about any of that. Like I'm just like, dude, you fucking do what you want. Like, like
Right.
honestly, like if you're not academically inclined, that's fine. It's not for fucking everyone. I like it
Sure.
because I like reading and shit. But like, you do get those like judgy people who are just like, man, just because someone decides to do something with their career and another person decides to do something else that they actually genuinely enjoy, what the fuck does it matter to you? Like,
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
that's my
Dude,
point, I think.
I had the exact opposite. I had an older brother who was into sports. He was in chorus. He's very popular. He got his license at a young age, was driving around and had a lot of dates. And I like had one girlfriend in high school, didn't get my license till I was 18, played no sports, was hunchbacked, man-boobed, and played Halo. And it's like, that was me.
Right.
I was the exact opposite. A lot of people are like, are you Austin Duncan? Are you so-and-so? And I'm like, yes, that's me. I get it. Like, we all look the fucking
I
same.
still have man boobs, but like,
Right.
it's-
Now, I mean, I still got man tits, but I'm like 2 inches taller and I have an awesome beard now. So that's the best part. But no, yeah, I totally feel that, though. I've been on the opposite end of this. And what's interesting is moving to his flashback here is that they really want to show you how great of a guy Denny is, and I understand that we don't have time to really flesh him out and give him like flaws and stuff, and make him like a full 3-dimensional character. But I love that his dad is just this like, yeah, you gotta watch out. There's going to be, you can tell immediately that Denny does not want to be a professional athlete. I don't think he gives a shit. He's like, this is fun and this is cool. And I just kind of want to have fun with this right now. And, but his dad is just like this. He feels like Emilio Estevez's dad in the Breakfast Club. Got to be a winner. It can't be any blue. He feels like that kind of dad.
he's pretty one note. Like he's just like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. Like, and I'm just like, can you just stop being an asshole and just pass? What does Gordy ask for here? Like pass the salt or some shit? Like he's just like, come on, man, pass the salad.
Right, yeah. I just saw that winery picture you sent me, and I'm like, holy, looks like something the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers would live in. Like that's fucking terrifying because it looks really old.
Horrifying, dude. Like that looks that photo that I sent you. That I think that's before the fence went up because there was a giant chain link fence. But if you look behind it, dude, there's like houses, like there's like people living near it.
Right.
And, like apparently you can go like underneath it and shit. And like there was like this giant cellar and holy fuck, man.
That sounds fucking like a terrible idea.
Right.
But I like the fact that even Denny is like, hey, yeah, Gordy wrote a story, and his mom is like, oh, hey, that's awesome. And see, you start talking about girls, you get this idea in his head. I'm like, I love seeing this actor get butchered in Freddy's Revenge.
Freddy's Revenge. Yeah.
He's in Starship Troopers. Like this guy's in everything.
Yeah. I love. So we've got two Nightmare on Elm Street guys.
Right?
There
you go.
And then we've also got Corey Feldman, who was also in one of the Jason films.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, holy shit, there's a lot of. I mean, it's 86,
Right.
But there's also I love. I love the fact that right away you can kind of see. And by the way, that's Marty McFly's grandmother in Back to the Future. That's Lorraine's mom.
Nice,
Marty.
nice,
I think
nice,
you're our
nice.
responsibility. And it's like I love that woman. She's great. She's really
awesome.
great. But you see where Gordy is the quiet one. Dad is pressuring him. Mom is just subservient to the dad because this is the 50s. Obviously he starts getting onto her and she just like ducks down and starts shoving her eyes around. I'm like, fuck, I fucking hate that shit. But then you see that, Denny is like not interested in this. He's like, dude, you have another son here, by the way. Like you should probably talk to him. And I there's something, again, the myth of the perfect brother thing that's definitely hardcore in it, that's hardcore and sometimes they come back. But it's also something that's, as somebody who is very close to his older brother, that's very, I definitely understand that like relationship though. I definitely get it.
It really, really reminded me of Stranger Things, like in terms of Will Byers and his older brother.
There you go.
I'm forgetting Will Byers' older brother's name, but yeah. Jonathan, that's right. Yeah, like that, like how what's the song that they play together?
Should I stay or should I go now?
That's right. And that's kind of like what it reminded me of, like when they're in the bedroom, like talking to each other and shit. And man, John Cusack is fucking great in this scene, dude, like with the dinner table. Like he really sells Dad, I get that you're proud of me, but there is literally there is another fucking spawn sitting right here, right? Give him some attention, or he's not gonna turn out too well.
Right, and the whole time, Gordy, hey, can I have the potatoes? Dad, can I have the potato? And it's like, you can tell Denny trying to pass the buck off, like, will you fucking talk to this kid for the love of God? Like, and his dad's like, hey, do you think there's gonna be Gordy wrote a good story, and like cuts into his dad talking. I love that, and his dad just gets shut the fuck down. Like, that's so awesome.
And it's interesting to me that like. I'm not saying that Chris ends up being like the surrogate father for Gordy, but it's interesting to me that
kinda, I agree with that. I think so.
That's what I'm saying. Like Gordy leans on him heavily, like to give him advice and life advice and things like that. Things that he should be asking his father, right? But he can't. He can't ask his father that because his father's a distant sociopath who ignores his own son. So he has to reach out to Chris,
Right. No, 100%. That is definitely a surrogate, like a substitute in that way. I think that's not a far stretch at all. I think for either of them too, they're when you look at Gordy's brother's dad, his dad pretty much ignores him. But then when you look at Chris, it's like his brother's an asshole who kind of for the most part ignores him. But then his dad is there. It's like that scene. He says, hey, at least my dad hits me, but at least, him hitting me lets me know that I'm there. It's like, it's the difference of psychological versus physical abuse in that way. I would argue that the physical abuse is probably less traumatic, but I don't put value to anybody's trauma but my own. But there is something interesting about they're both going through the exact same thing, but on different sides of a coin. I really think that's I hate to say just interesting, but it's a great flip of that, similar thing between the two of them. Of course, Gordy gets back to the junkyard in time to see Chopper. I like this. He was my first brush with the urban legends and mythology and stuff. I think that's really interesting. The whole thing of it's almost like Sandlot hitting the ball into James Earl Jones' backyard, and he's like, "Why didn't you just come and get it?" Like I love. Everybody looks at Squints and they're like, "You fucking asshole." Have you seen Sandlot? I'm sorry, I don't know if I
saw it when I was younger.
Okay,
a lot younger. But now that I look back at it, it kind of strikes me. It's kind of like the Scream situation, and then. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like, like it reminds me a lot of like the Stand By Me is the Scream. The Sandlot is not the carbon copy, but like, we're looking at Stand By Me and we know what it's doing well. Let's try and do the same. Like, that's
sure. That's it in Stranger Things, Apparently I may be wrong, but I heard the Duffer Brothers basically got turned down, and that's when they went to Cary Fukunaga, and then from Cary Fukunaga it went to
Andy Muschietti.
Yeah, Andy Muschietti. And basically the Duffer Brothers were like, well, fuck you. I'm going to start my own Stephen King's It with blackjack and hookers. And they went and did Stranger Things.
It fucking works, dude. And I wouldn't be surprised like if Stranger Things looked at Stand By Me as well. And like, they're kind of like, these kids
dude,
kind of like
there's a scene in like season 2 with Dustin and Steve walking down the railroad tracks together. And I think, dude, come on. That is so Stand By Me. That's right.
Exactly. Before they encounter the dogs. Except, hey, Stranger Things is a black kid.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
It's not the 80s anymore.
Dude, this is 1959. Like when they show the pie eating contest, you might as well be inside a box of saltines. It's a cracker factory. But fucking, he's spitting his drink out.
Holy
oh,
shit!
That's great.
Oh
That's
my
look like a
God.
fucking salt. Look like a fucking salt shaker, dude. A bunch of crackers. There's something about the word cracker that's just great. Like you fucking honky. Like you cracker. Like I love that.
Oh, shit. Oh.
I heard
good.
Stephen King tell a story about going to see Carrie, and he's like, we went to a predominantly black theater in a predominantly black neighborhood, and we looked like just 2 little grains of salt in a pepper shaker. I was like, holy shit, that's something you'd hear an author say though. Like that's a hilarious analogy. So they escape. We figure out what happened to Teddy's dad, that he's locked up in a mental institute. Loony. That's so iconic. The loony shit.
But also,
the whole
I
thing
mean, are you calling a World War II veteran fucking loony? You piece of
Right.
shit! Like, come on,
well,
man.
yeah, and this is before. I mean, it was shell shock. It was not even PTSD. I assume this is probably PTSD related. That he flipped out and tried to burn Teddy's ear. Probably thought he was a fucking kraut or something, and basically tried to burn his ear. But there's something. It really explains a lot about Teddy, and I think it's a great moment to flesh him out. Of having the outside world look at him and go, "Oh, your dad's crazy." Like it validates a lot of stuff. That's it's not exposition. It's a great scene between everybody going on, and again, it's such a small town. He's like, I know all your dads. He's like, you're Gordy LaChance. Like I know all of you. I know all your fathers. Really feels like a small southern town.
In this movie.
Oh, dude, yeah. Oh my God, so much. As they kind of break apart, he's like, fuck it. I don't care about it. It's not a big deal. And basically saying that like whatever happens though, your dad's still storming the beaches of Normandy, which I wonder, there's something almost like, I almost don't believe that. I almost think that that's something that Teddy heard once, or his dad in a like maybe his dad was in the military, but in some kind of like weird outburst just said he was, kind of like Cotton and King of the Hill. I killed Fitty Man, and he claims for doing stuff that he didn't do. And I'm not saying that he does it intentionally. It's maybe it's a side effect of like
well, that's what I was going to say. It could be Teddy. And I'm not saying there is not one. I mean, there is some evidence of this, but it's like maybe it's Teddy, having this kind of like affection and love for his dad, despite him, burning his ear off. But it's also him kind of like, he's in the loony bin, sure, but I'm going to try and picture my dad as a war hero in my head. Like, I want him to be better in my head than he actually is in real life. He could be a shitbag in real life.
Right. Well, you don't want to ruin the image of them that you do have,
exactly.
with what the reality is. I like they all consider kind of turning around, and he's like, no, and Gordy's like, this shouldn't be a party. We're going to go see a dead body. And I love as Gordy's like, he's going to be eyeballs and all. It's like, yeah, shut up, God damn it, Vern. I think that's so funny. Like River Phoenix just snaps on him.
Vern's so great, man. I love Vern is fucking adorable, man. Jerry O'Connell, and it's interesting because he looks physically nothing like Jerry O'Connell today, but some of the mannerisms, dude, are just there. Like, just the way that he like shakes his hands and like looks around, and he's got that manic, nervous energy sometimes. Like you can see it, man.
100%. Speaking of gangs, where you kind of flop back over to the Cobras with Kiefer Sutherland. God, there's something.
The Cobras.
The Cobras. It's like the snuddle, the tunnel snakes from Fallout. It's like the tunnel snakes, really?
It's like what is it? White Goldman's fucking name for his team in Dodgeball. Right? Isn't it like the blue purple cobras or some shit?
It's something, yeah. They all come out like their arms and stuff. But I like this kind of I like this change of them, all giving each other tattoos. What's really interesting is even though they're all proclaiming to be this real tight knit, we're a gang and blah blah. None of these guys have the relationship that our four protagonists do anywhere close in the closeness of that. And like, yeah, you've got a car, and yeah, you're giving each other tattoos. It's all really surface level shit. Versus like these guys have nothing. They're just four friends, but they have so much of a bond, a huge bond. But it's going to be a huge bond. It's fantastic. They're the best friends I've ever had. Tremendous. It's going to be tremendous. We're going to find his dead body. We're going to anonymously report it because I don't take credit because I'm a fantastic person. Fantastic.
I will not admit defeat. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, like I don't think. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? these guys
Fucking
having the
Donald Trump is Ace Merrill. We're not gonna forget about this. I'll be back. If either one of you had $1,000, I'd kill you both.
Fuck me. Yeah, but like you can't picture Chris. These guys having a conversation like Chris and Gordy do later. Like
No.
when they're standing watch. Like there is no level of like I'm going to bare my soul to you. Like like I'm going to show you what I fear the most, which is not being able to step out from under the shadow of my family. Like there is none of that. Like like whatever these guys kind of like. Whatever scares these guys, whatever like fears they might have, whatever kind of like limitations they might have, these are the types of guys who are going to try and like protect themselves as much as they can, so they don't, so they can like maintain their level of power in this group. Like it's all about like power structure.
Right, they're just going to suppress all of that stuff. Like you can see these guys being a gang in prison, But
the sisters.
Right, yeah. I like the distinction between the two groups where it's like, if either one of you assholes has $1,000, I'd kill you both. Like, fucking Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
That just really shows you
and
like,
I believe
the depth
it.
of that. I somewhat believe it. I think that, yeah, probably. It wouldn't surprise me. But again, we're cutting back. There's really an interesting kind of dynamic even in the group of Gordy and them of Gordy and Chris are always they're kind of sullen and they're always thinking of a bigger picture. And Vern and Teddy are just like these like, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Kind of whoop, like these weird, goofy kind of kids. And I don't think they're just even that you can tell there's two camps in this movie. There definitely is. And we get this great interaction between River Phoenix and Will Wheaton where he's like, do you think I'm weird? Definitely. And like, I love that quote. I think that's fantastic. But, this is where they really kind of start drawing the line where he's like, you're going to take college courses, I'm going to be with the rest of the retards making ashtrays and birdhouses. I'm like, oh fuck, like to be that aware of your situation is almost unbelievable at that age.
Yeah.
Like you might have an inkling of it, but like these kids, I mean, if you believe it that much, you might as well just go hang yourself because fuck, dude, like
exactly,
you're never going to break out of this. Come on, dude, you got to have a little bit more optimism for a 12-year-old.
I think they are. Yeah, I think they are a bit young to understand this, and like that doesn't really break it for me. Like it's not kind of like a make or break situation for me. I still enjoy this, but this did happen for me, and it didn't happen for me until year 12. Like I had a best friend, my mate Tony. He we met in 5th grade. Like we were kind of inseparable. We went from 5th grade to high school, like pretty much inseparable. Always used to hang out together, spend time together. And this is gonna sound super gay, like by the way, but I don't care. It's fucking friendship. But like like his family moved from Queensland, and they used to live across the street, so. Literally, like, we used to go back and forth between our houses all the time, watch movies, like, swim in the pool, whatever. And, year 12 came and the HSC came, which is like the big exam that you do for uni. Like, that leads into uni. I guess it's kind of like your SATs. I think that might be the
the
thing.
Gotcha.
And Tony was more kind of like, into the science fields, right? So, like, he wanted to become a civil engineer. I wanted to become a lawyer. I was more into English. He was more into science. I think the way the school system worked is that the science units actually netted you a better grade. Like there was a thing called scaling, because
like a grading curve.
Right, exactly. So in the state in New South Wales, the way they did it back when I was in school, I don't know if they still do this. There was a thing called the Australian Tertiary Admission Rank, and basically they ranked every student in the state who sat those exams. And if you're doing the science ones, which are technically the harder units, you would be ranked a bit higher than those who would do English, right? So we kind of understood that we would not be going to the same unis. Like, I was like, I'm probably going to end up going to Western Sydney University, which is, technically not as prestigious as the University of Sydney or the University of New South Wales. Those are a bit more prestigious, and that's where Tony wanted to go. So we were just like, man, like we know that we're not going to end up going to the same unis. Like, this is probably, but whatever, it'll be fine. We'll still hang out, whatever. And this is the friend that I was talking about, right? Like, so we went to different unis, we did different things. He ended up taking a job in Melbourne, and now he works in the mines, like like as a civil engineer. Yeah, like there's a lot of mining here, dude.
Yeah, I was like, wait a
minute.
minute, like he like with like a headlight on, like swinging a pick, and I was like, wait a minute, what?
I don't think he does that. I think he does kind of like more of the engineering side of things. But like,
Right, that's why I was like, wait a minute.
right. But even that, dude. Like, we tried to keep in touch. We tried to keep it going, but it was just, like you eventually you move on, and like this part of the movie happened. We're 33 minutes in, and I was just like, God damn it! Like, this is literally exactly the same thing that happened to me.
Right, no, 100%, dude. I've got. It sucks, but it's also like one of those things where even if that's like Danny and I's group, we always try, even once a year, like we've got to get back together. Like around Christmas time, we usually try to do something as a group. Obviously not this year, but we've done that multiple times. We hang out and play Rock Band, Halo, Cards Against Humanity, like something, and it's like 10, 15 people in a room. So I mean, I totally feel that. So basically, I'm saying, stop being a bitch, pick up the phone, call your friend Tony. Jesus Christ, I'm sure Tony.
No, we
Tony's
do. We
just
do.
like,
I picked up the phone like 3 months ago. I think the first time after a year and a half, and I was like, "Dude, hey man, how you doing? Like, what's happening?" He's like, "Yeah, good man. I just got off a flight. Like, they flew me in from like Brisbane. Like, he's in Brisbane now. They flew me in from Brisbane to like some remote area of the country where they have the mines." And like I'm kind of like fly in, fly out like every few days, and I'm just like, God damn, like that's intense, man.
That's
well,
crazy.
When you're when you're back in Sydney, let me know when you want to go for a beer, dude. Like we'll fucking catch up. Like, but at the same time, it's just there is a level of disconnect like that you don't have that you did when you were in high school or in primary school. Like you can't
sure.
just simply walk over to the house across the street and put on a movie. Like like I am as I get older, dude. I am becoming more and more reflective about those kinds of things. Like like my best friend is now expecting a baby. He just bought a house, and I can't help but like think back to the times that we used to work together at the cinemas and just fuck around, dude. Just like honestly, just do shit, like But we can't do that anymore because we are. I feel and this comes up so often. But I feel like Simon Pegg and The World's End. That's what I feel like sometimes. And it's just depressing.
No, I
why
get
did you
it,
choose this movie?
No, I get it because it's also at the same time of like, it's kind of funny. Like it feels in the way of like keeping up with the tradition. It feels in the way of like restoring the order, keep doing the things. Point in case, I have a guy. We just had Thanksgiving yesterday, and there's a guy who texted me one year. His name's LaRue, Larue, and he texted me in 4 or 5 years ago and was like, "Hey, happy Thanksgiving or Merry Christmas or something." And I was like, "I think you have the wrong number." I was like, "But fuck it, Merry Christmas, dude. Like, I don't know who you are, but Merry Christmas." And he was just like, "Well, hey, I appreciate that. We ought to keep this tradition up." He called me yesterday. 5 years we've gone texting each other every Christmas. I've never met this guy. Every Christmas and Thanksgiving, be like, "Hey, happy holidays. Hope you're doing well." He calls me. I have never had his number saved, and I answer the phone. I'm like, "Hello?" And he goes, "The tradition continues." It's like, "Is this LaRue?" And he's like, "What's up, man?"
Awesome, dude.
I had never talked to him on the phone though, so I was kind of like, "Wait, what?" But I was like, "What's up, man?" And he's like, "Hey, I hope you guys are doing well." Blah blah blah. And I was like, "But it feels like this just a tradition that you've got to do eventually."
It's comfort in the familiar, right? Like, I mean, you just take comfort in like this whole thing. Like, man, like this is familiar to me, so I'm just gonna, like this feels good. Like like it's not
right.
Yeah,
there's something also that sucks about when you're
man.
There's something kind of funny with that when you're within those groups. Sometimes there are some people that you would never hang out again outside of this group. Like I would never want to hang out with you really outside this group, But
I thought you were saying me. I'm just excuse me, you.
But there's people before that you were like best friends with that spent every weekend with for years, and now it's like I probably would not hang out with you, but maybe once a year outside this group.
All about the dynamic, yeah, absolutely.
Right, yeah. And really, we're kind of, we're getting to the part where they're talking about, he said, "I wish I were your dad. I'd kick your ass all around here," talking about not taking college courses. I think this is all really interesting. It's good stuff. It builds on the relationship. And I don't want to just skip over that, but that's really just kind of the synopsis of the scene is him basically just saying like, I'm nobody, I'm not special, I'm just going to do my classes. And, basically him saying, if your parents are too fucked up to do it, then yeah, I'll be your parents. Like, I'll support you and I'll do this.
I love it.
I like it. I do. We get the hint from a Strain Dodge right here. Iconic scene. There's something. Yeah, dude, him feeling the hum and shit, and like the fact that it's also cool that it's Gordy, that Gordy's the one who's like, I don't know, like it shows our main character is like an intelligent, like common sense fourth person. But dude, yeah, this was nuts because, they do a lot of like some digital effects with it, when they jump and stuff. But when they're running down the train, that's two women just dressed in clothes and they have haircuts.
Oh,
and stuff.
Shit.
So
nice.
It's two women running. Like there is some real shit on it. But it's definitely two women running at some point.
There is so before I had seen Stand By Me, I had seen a Family Guy episode called The Three Kings. Well, I think it was just Three Kings. And it was literally just kind of like, like how The Simpsons does Treehouse of Horror, and it's just 3 stories over the the episode. Right. So this is 3 Stephen King kind of like takes on Family Guy.
Yeah, I remember that.
So the first one was, I think, Stand By Me. The second one was Misery, and the third one was Shawshank Redemption. And maybe that's why in my mind I was like, God, like these 3 are the best, or I don't know. But anyway, like I just remember the Stand By Me one, and like Stewie's on the thing, and like he does the Gordy train.
Doesn't Joe get crippled in all 3 of them somehow?
Oh
he
my
gets, like,
God,
fucked
dude! Yeah, so Joe in this one gets run over by the train.
Well, because he's James Caan in Misery, and then I think he's like Boggs Diamond in Shawshank, where they just wail on his legs the whole time. But, I like this because what's happening in these scenes is we'll have like an emotional, dramatic scene. It's very paced really well. We have this like low kind of like flow drama kind of going on between Gordy and Chris. And then we have like a train scene and we're up and spiking, but then it goes right back down when they're all sitting around, they've eaten their food, they're laughing and stuff. Gordy, Vern drops his food in the fire and gets it back, and they all smoke a cigarette. And he's like, I love Chris is like, yeah, that's when Winston takes the best, is after dinner. I'm like, you are parroting some ad you heard from like a doctor on TV. 9 out of 10 doctors prefer Camel cigarettes. And it's like, that's so, this kid is just parroting shit.
Smoke Laramie.
Right, exactly. Like, Canyonero, and like just somebody, yeah. She's a dearest question girl because it's a machine, Canyonero. But yeah, this is a nice scene. We kind of see them it's one of the few times in this we actually see them kind of put their feet up and be like, this is the live boys. And then it lasts until the coyotes show up. They're like, all right, somebody stay awake. But in between that, we have the story of Lardass. And what we're going to do, let's put a pin in that. Let's take a break. Let's grab some drinks and empty our bladders. Guys, we will be right back with the story of Lardass and part 2 of Stand By Me.
Hey, thanks for listening to Midnight Double Feature. Just a couple things before we jump back into the episode. We recently launched a website, midnightdoublefeature.com, where you can find everything basically we've done. All of our written reviews, all of our podcasts. You can even find merchandise on there now. We have things like t-shirts, mugs, locks of hair from Zoheb, old grocery lists that Matt had written on. All those are available at midnightdoublefeature.com. Zoheb and Colin recently started a new podcast. That is Midnight Double Feature Presents Bad Crystal, a Breaking Bad podcast. And that's right, they're covering the hit show Breaking Bad. The big thing here is that Zoheb has watched it several times, and Colin has never watched it a single time. So go check that out. That's Bad Crystal, a Breaking Bad podcast. We kept coming out with so much content that we finally had to start a Patreon. That's right. Midnight Double Feature now has a Patreon page where you can find members-only exclusive episodes, as well as commentary tracks. You even get discounted merch on our aforementioned website. All this can be found for $5 a month. So head over to our Patreon page for Midnight Double Feature and get some exclusive content. Lastly, before we jump back into the episodes, you can find us at facebook.com/Midnight Double Feature. We also have a group on there called The After Party, full of a bunch of cool-ass people that share a lot of movie-related stuff on there. We get a lot of good conversations. You can also find us on Instagram at Midnight Double Feature, at Twitter at MDF Pod, and if you just hate using podcasting platforms, you can even find us on YouTube. We now return to whatever you were listening to.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the second part of Stand By Me, aka the story of Lardass. We are officially squeezed. It is time to jump into the story of one Gordy LaChance, the tale of Lardass. This is so... The humor in this is so, like, different, and it's a quirky story, especially for something set in, like, 1950s, 1960s. It's just kind of like a quirky... This feels almost something like you would see in, like Freaks and Geeks from the 90s. You know, this seems like something that would just be like, I mean, everybody at this thing throw up. I think it's hilarious, and you know, obviously him being him end up becoming an author, you know, and obviously, you know, we see the house that he's in at the end. He's fucking loaded. So I'm like, okay, so this guy's must be pretty funny, or he must write some really good stuff. So I think it's interesting not only that they didn't go for like a scary story as in the vein of like, oh, he'll be like Stephen King. It's just a story of like humor and revenge and stuff. It's this like vengeant like tale. I think that's so fucking strange. And the way it goes about it to a pie eating contest where the guy drinks a bottle of fucking castor oil. I'm like, ugh, that is disgusting. Have you ever drank a raw egg?
And a raw egg, dude. Just cracking the raw egg like that. Yeah,
it's almost impossible. Like, you just want to like, as soon as you
I'm
drink
not a psychopath. It's a hard pass. I don't care what The Rock does, and I don't care. Like, I mean, like, I'd love to have that body, but I'm not willing to work that hard for it. But anyway, so this
how did we end up here?
The first time I saw this, man, I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, you know, like, what are we? Yeah, how do we end up here? Like, what relevance does this have to the story? I think that's the biggest question, right? Like, what relevance does this kind of like 5, 6, 7 minute story have to Stand By Me? And that was kind of like the challenge this time around. I was like, because I definitely remember this. Like, I was like, there are only a few things that I remembered about Stand By Me between the first watch and my second watch. Is that the train scene, this scene, and
right.
I think from memory that I remember them being in the tree house. That's it. So that's all I remembered. But this scene in particular, this time around, I was like, this is a kid standing up for himself. Like, this is a kid who's just like not taking any shit, no nonsense. Like, because he's fucking fed up. Like, you know, he's been poked. It's like poking a bear. Like, he's been poked that many times. Eventually he's going to crack and get his revenge. And like, you know, once we come around to the end with Gordy and he's holding the gun to Ace, you know, I'm just like, okay, so we've kind of like come full circle here. But this scene's great, man. I love this scene now. And everything is kind of like heightened, you know, like all of the vomiting is super like, you know, it's projectile vomiting. It's not how other normal people vomit.
Right.
It's exactly how a kid would tell a story to other kids. Like, you know, it's all very extreme. Like, you know, like this guy, this Lardass, he is quite clearly, he is huge, right? Like, he is massive. He's not,
right.
You know, like it's to the point where it's unrealistically massive. Like, you know,
it looks like he has a padded suit on.
And again, like feeds into like how a kid would tell another kid a story. But this, exactly, yeah. There is one moment where I'm just like, man, like he looks like he's got literally like a pillowcase underneath. Sorry, a pillow underneath his shirt. But yeah, like all of it is just so like, yeah, heightened. You know, there's not one black person in sight, like you pointed out earlier. But yeah, man, I dig this. I dig this a lot. It's hilarious. It's gross. It's exactly the kind of stories a kid Gordy's age would tell other kids as well. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I love like that they're all kind of like, you know, on edge as he's telling the story, right? Like they're all kind of like,
and I love it because
just like kind of like huddled up, like listening to it. It's fantastic. It's a great thing.
Fucking Vern, who's like, yeah, not a horror story. Oh yeah, I knew this girl, real fat boy. Vern, shut the fuck up. And he's like, oh, okay, my bad. But the greatness of the story, the fact that it's like the benevolent order of the antelope, like this short story feels so real, where it's like this guy was like a 4-time champion, Bill Travis. You have from the best on racks and the sacks on wax. We got, and you've got this DJ. You have. Right, and it feels so like, holy shit, this feels so
the
like,
devil's
legit.
in the details, right?
And I love when he fucking trips him in the mayor. I think it's the mayor, the guy talking. He's like, "Oh, don't let it get you down, lard ass." I mean, Davey, I fucking laughed my ass off, dude. I think there's also a line that we missed where it's Teddy, and he's like, "Guys, wait any longer. The kid's not going to be dead anymore." The kid's not going to be dead anymore. I laugh my ass off every time I hear that line. But this is the tale of Lardass.
So
he
good.
jumps into it. He's plowing through these pies. The crazy part is how much has to be eaten,
Okay, what are the rules here? What I need to know the rules, because how much has to be eaten? Because he's just eating the center. I'm just like, what? Whereas everyone else is eating like the edges of it and shit.
Right.
And I'm just like,
how do you not
how do
suffocate
you
before
determine
you
that
get to like the
Lardass is
6th one? Because your
finishing these
face,
pies?
it's just like,
it doesn't make any sense.
like clustered in that shit. But yeah, there's something so menacing too about the adult.
Right.
I think exactly like what you said is right. If this is Gordy, kind of like the I guess to like try to think of like what is the deeper meaning behind this. And like I think there's also something about it's a character who is breaking the ramifications or the box. It's a character breaking the box of what this town has kind of put him in. Of like, I might be Lardass, but like I'm doing something to kind of like strike out of that. Like I'm doing something to kind of like it's not like he's, running a 5K or something. He's not going the total opposite direction, but it's also something like when you pin a person in that box and you cast them as this thing, eventually it's going to come back to like kind of bite you in the ass. And it totally does. Like the thing that they hate him for is also, or they ridicule him for, is also their downfall. That's hilarious. Like there's something great about that, of like just kind of destroying this image of you. I think that's really cool. And seeing the adult trip him is also like, dude, there's so much stuff like with the adults fucking with Chris and fucking with Gordy and fucking with Teddy, and it's like just showing that adults can also be monsters towards kids. There's something interesting about that, of like adults, it's like adult on adult like violence, but like adult fucking with a kid, it's like, what an asshole, man. Like it really, yes, right.
Well, it's very much a Stephen King thing, I think, right? Like this is also from It. You've got Beverly's dad being a fucking asshole, that pharmacist, and then there's the whole idea of like the adults in the town not being aware or cognizant of what's happening.
There's
between
just something
the
about
kids
always
and
showing that
the entity
the real
in Derry,
monsters are the people in your day-to-day life, and who are in the world that we live in. It's not just something that is make-believe. But like once he actually starts throwing up and you hear the noises and stuff, when they're all like, he's like, the ladies of the first, Chamber of Commerce threw up all over the, the heads of the benevolent, whatever antelopes, like all of the shit. The funniest one is he's like, a fat lady threw up in her purse, and she opens up her purse, and she's like just, it's just a little bit. But it kind of made me, it's like a classier version of like Scary Movie 2 when they all start throwing like pea soup up on each other. It's a classier version of that. And it's something great just about seeing a character, like you said, I'm sure they don't doubt his pie eating abilities. So it's like, and he basically uses that to his advantage. It's like, this is my invitation to like totally fuck shit up. And by the end, like they're all covered in vomit and stuff. He's like, look, you're on the same playing field as me. Like we're all covered in vomit right now. Like, I think that's so great. I think it's a fantastic story. Like I kind of wish they had actually put it to some form of like writing, if they had that like short story had been written by somebody like that would be fucking cool. But yeah, I think exactly what you said. It feels so Stephen King. This is so like Carrie at prom, just like fucking shit up. I think it's great. The guy who is the DJ is the one that I'm like, is that Family Guy's like wacky wailing inflatable arm flailing tube man guy? Because it sounds just like him. It's really, really close. These pies look delicious, though. I actually, on break, went and had a piece of pumpkin pie. My girlfriend made a fresh pumpkin pie like an hour ago. A chicken pie?
Give me a chicken pie. Fuck that blueberry.
Like a pot
bullshit
pie,
or
like a
whatever
chicken
it is.
pot pie.
Chicken
I'm thinking
pie.
like strawberry, apple, blueberry. You're like, give me chicken. I'm like,
No, fuck that shit.
yeah, just
protein.
You guys got any protein?
Get me the meat.
hey, Lord, ass, somebody putting this needle in my butt. I can't do it. Right. Can you take
Can
this
you
kangaroo
kill a
off and
fucking
boil it
animal
down
and
for
put
me?
it in a pie for me, please?
But yeah, the ending, Teddy's like, what if he goes back into town and kills his dad and runs off and joins? He's like, no, that's a terrible ending. It really just shows you like maybe even Gordy doesn't know why he wrote the story that way. Do I think that Gordy is at that age where he understands kind of like, oh, well, this is just a deeper meaning for, it's like, no, I think he just kind of has the story and the way that it's kind of like in a way of like Stephen King. There's a famous, really, I guess I shouldn't say famous, one of my favorite scenes in the book, and it's where Bill Denbrough going to college kind of, everybody in his class is like very, avant-garde, and they're like, oh, well, this really means it's about the war, man, and like stuff like that. And he's eventually like, well, can't stories just be stories? And I think that's something interesting, and they all give him shit about it in the book and blah, blah, blah. But I think that's kind of what Gordy's doing is he's just writing a story, and it's happening to match a lot of stuff going on in his life so perfectly. And I think he knows he wants somebody who like lashes out at adults and kind of has this revenge story, but it's not,
Yeah, it could be subconscious, entirely like subconscious. Like like you're like whatever you're making
Right.
up,
Well,
like is feeding into is feeding from your personal story,
right. And there's something great about the fact that it's something that is a talent
making it
of
that way.
the two people that they're using. It's not something where it's like, oh, I learned a new skill. It's like they're taking a natural talent, and in the way that Lardass turns everybody into this throwing up thing, Gordy has done that now by putting these people in the story himself. He's ridiculed them. He's thrown up on them basically, but he's done it in the realm of like his story. I think that's really cool. And just seeing like, these people exist in their town of Castle Rock. This feels like a real people from Castle Rock. The twins creep me out. I'm just going to say it. They say, hey, watch out, White Blood. And they're like, look at each other. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you look like you guys fell out of League of Their Own. It's fucking weird. The twins are when he walks up on stage, they're these two identical male twins. They're fucking weird. They look like they dropped out of BioShock.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean that's just yeah, but that's just
right.
King having
no,
a hard
that's
on
true.
for twins.
That is true. I mean, after all,
Like,
he did invent Wonder
Shining.
Twin Power Activate. Right, he invented twins. Yeah, that would
He
be
invented
amazing.
twins. He wrote the movie Twins with
I
Danny DeVito
love
and
the fucking
Schwarzenegger.
questions as they're winding down. They're telling me he's like, I know Mickey's a mouse and Donald's a duck, but what the fuck is Goofy? And I'm like, dude, that is so fucking great.
Oh my god, dude, so good. And like we keep coming back to like, what is Goofy?
Dude, I think my favorite. That one's really good.
I love
but one of my
Vern's.
favorite
Vern's
lines
one is my
Vern being like,
favorite.
if I could
dude.
eat one food for the rest of my life, Pez. Cherry flavored Pez. And like, I have said that more times than I can remember. I fucking love it. It's so funny. Like, he's talking about some show. He's like, I guess it's some wagon show. And he's like, and they never get to where they're going. They just always keep going. And I was like, yeah, because the show would end then. Nobody mentioned Ray Brower, but we were all thinking about him. We wake up to the sound of these coyotes. I'm sure you're familiar, Australia. I'm sure you're familiar with this. Like, we have a lot of coyotes in the South too. So you hear them like a lot, even in I live, like in a cul-de-sac, like in a suburban neighborhood, but off, like I'm like not too far away. I can hear like, I can hear them in packs and stuff. It's really, I figured you guys had like some coyotes or something.
I am not familiar with any of this at all. Like, we don't, I mean, obviously.
Well, whatever your hyenas.
No, coyotes
dingoes,
are not in Australia. We don't have coyotes at all. But yeah, dingoes, right. But we don't have, like, they don't live in suburban areas.
Like, kind of like the country?
They will be found mostly in, like, inland Australia. Like, yeah, like, right, exactly, the country. So, you're talking about Northern Territory, South Australia, kind of like Uluru, like that kind of area. Because that's where...
That's right.
That's where Chamberlain was, like, when, the dingo stole my baby, like that whole thing, right? So... Right, like you won't find a dingo.
That's not
like
you definitely won't see that
roaming
here,
the streets.
But it's at night when like
in Sydney. There's just
I
no
live
way.
in like a neighborhood in like a cul-de-sac, but there's also like woods and stuff nearby. It's 5 minutes from the middle of town, but it's also 5 minutes in the middle of nowhere. Like you can be,
right.
See that I feel like it'd be kind of cool because
you see
like,
kangaroos.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
I mean, kangaroos are fucking
or
pests.
until they like show up and until they start taking your jobs and taking what and took their jobs.
They fucking took our jobs. We need to build a wall.
Oh man,
there needs to be a wall between these illegal immigrants.
Right, there's a lot of Trump. But yeah, the
a lot of Trump in this one. Jesus Christ!
Again, it's a little reality burst. It's them waking up to like, oh shit, like we're out here on our own. We're pretty much defenseless, except for this gun. Like somebody should probably. But the way they all stand post is so who they are, though. Is like, dude. just like I'm surprised he didn't kill all of them in their sleep.
Vandered.
Dude, I think I made this up in my mind, but for some odd reason, I don't want to be like, I approve Stand By Me, but that's what it's going to sound like. As I totally thought, for whatever reason, I think I'm misremembering this from Tremors, but I thought that somebody was going to come over and take his post and then get the gun and then they take the clip and slide it in and he's like, the gun wasn't loaded. Like, hell no, we're not going to give you a loaded gun. But that's from Tremors. I forgot about that.
Well, that's like we went past that actually, when they bring up the gun in the first place and Chris gives it to Gordy, and Gordy's like, "It's not." Chris is like, "It's not loaded. Don't worry about it." Bang!
Because he's like, "Man, seriously, I didn't know." And I'm like, "Actually, it's not funny, but it's also kind of it is kind of funny."
I don't know. That's a good question. I never really considered that it was fucking with him. I don't think he did. I think he was being legitimate because there's nothing for us to say. There's nothing that tells me that Chris is the kind of guy who's like, "Did you steal milk money?" It's like,
"Of course."
Yeah,
I did. Right.
Well, this is where we are, right? Like we're right here. This
his
is
dad tells him
the
it
big
should have been
scene.
him. Like this is pretty heavy stuff. Like now we're really like in the thick of it. And when he takes over, but we get a little right.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen so much of like Gordy of like what he's going through, but we really haven't had a moment to sit on Chris's like situation and kind of see exactly like we've heard mentions of it, but there's not really been like this is exactly what my problem is at home. Like we've only seen it like a little bit to that extent. But this scene, again, like it's not something I can relate to, but God, River Phoenix is like a powerhouse where he's like, basically just crying and he's like, I don't want to be, what my family is. Like, I don't want to become that, and ultimately you take satisfaction that even knowing that he's dead, being told the story that he did broke that fever. He broke the fever of being that kind of person and falling into that trap and not using that as an excuse for just being a piece of shit. And he's like, it's my family. He's like, no, I'm going to break that cycle. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's something that's kind of like looked over in the light of his death. You're like, well, I mean, yeah, he's dead. It's like, but he broke the cycle. I think that's something, if anything, you can take a positive note to it. But yeah, he basically says that he stole the milk money, but he went to return it. Teacher, came in wearing a brand new skirt and stuff. And, I am inclined to think that he's telling the truth here, but there is something that's almost unbelievable about it, of just like, no, I stole it, but I returned it. And somebody else stole it, like blah, blah, blah. It sounds like a lie, but that he's not lying. But it sounds like just such a far-fetched story. But it's also, again, the thing of like watching the guy trip Lardass is like there are monsters out there that treat kids like this and just blame shit on them just because, they're a bad seed or they come from like a bad, from a not as stable environment, I guess. For
me, it's kind of like, I absolutely do not think he is lying. I mean, like this reaction here is so visceral. Like he's in tears. Like there is no way he's lying about this. Like it just seems so legitimate. But like for me, it's like, yeah, I can see how it could be construed as a lie if he wasn't acting. If you don't have River Phoenix in this moment as acting as well as he does, this could come across as a lie. But I don't think so. I think River Phoenix sells this as well as he possibly can. For me, it's like the teacher is kind of like representative of like the trouble will always find your family. Like, the trouble will always eventually catch up to you. Like, no matter how much you try and right that wrong, no matter how much you try and like backpedal on the wrongdoing that you did, like, which is in this case taking the milk money, you changed your mind, you returned the milk money, you tried to make good on the wrong that you did, but your family is cursed. Like, you know, your family doesn't get to make decisions like that. That's the kind of family that you grew up in. And I think the teacher 100% knows that, right? Like, the teacher 100% knows who this family is. Was the Chambers family? So she's using the reputation of the Chambers family to be able to use
I do too.
Chris as a scapegoat, right? Like, I buy it. I buy it based on the reputation of the families alone, the reputation of the family alone. And it kind of sucks, man, because there like, you've never seen The Wire, have you? So The Wire is like great, and I think I brought it up before, but The Wire is great in that it shows you the way that kids are roped in to the drug trade in Baltimore. And it doesn't have to be specifically to Baltimore, right? Like, you know, it's kind of like the kids just go through this endless cycle of like, man, the parents are into the drugs, which means the kids are going to be into the drugs somehow. Either they're going to be recruited by gang members to sell the drugs, or they're going to be using the drugs themselves. It's just a vicious cycle, and it goes on and on and on. And no matter how much you as a child will want to look to your betters and try and escape from this, you just can't, because this is what you're born in. Like, this is the city that you're born in, this is the suburb you're born into, and this is the family that you're born into. Everything around you is just influencing your decisions and ability to make those decisions, and you just can't break away from it. And I understand this, man. Like, this reminded me of The Wire a lot.
I can't remember if The Wire's on HBO.
Man, you got to watch The Wire. That's what the big takeaway of this big rant is.
That fucking drives me crazy.
It's
I've got to send you the sketch.
Exclusive, yeah.
It's from oh god, I think I can't remember that. They did Peep Show. I can't remember that. A bit of I can't remember what the sketch thing is, but either way, it's like this guy. He's like, "This is my proposal." H. It's like home health. It's like home health something. And he's like, "What did you say your thing was?" He's like, "It's H." And he's like, "That's what I thought." He pulls out a gun and shoots him in the head. And they're like, "What the fuck, Tony?" He goes, "It's H, not H." It's height helicopter. Say helicopter.
I'm sorry, you say helicopter, not helicopter. Okay,
No,
so fuck off.
But yeah, this is a great scene. I wish I could just go somewhere where nobody knew my name. That's powerful stuff. That's just wanting to be wiped off from like, just I want to go somewhere else.
Oof.
What do you think of Gordy and the deer? What do you think this means? I'm just stretching here. I'm just like,
I want to be alone.
I mean, that's not a lot there to like interpret. Well, the deer symbolizes a new beginning of, or whatever. I just kind of wanted to pick your brain on that.
Yeah, I thought that this would absolutely come up on the podcast, and man, I am as clueless as you are because it's interesting. Like he highlights it, right? Like he's like, I kind of wanted to keep this moment to myself.
Maybe it's a character moment. Is interesting. More so?
I don't know why he wanted to keep it to himself. Like it reminds. Yeah, but I mean, what does it what does it mean? I want to know. It reminded me a lot of Three Billboards, right? We watched Three Billboards. Do you remember when the deer shows up?
Oh, yeah.
And the deer, like, she talks to the deer as if it's like her dead child. Do you remember? She's like, "Thank you for visiting me." I kind of wonder if it's something like that. Like, like, thank you, like the dead brother. Like, thank you for visiting me in this moment where I've just had this kind of like moment with my best friend. But yeah, it is strange to me, and I don't know if it kind of like symbolizes the brother visiting him, or like being like, "Hey, you're kind of like on the right path."
Yeah, well, I
like
think it's either. But it really shows like a level
really
of maturity for him. It also reminds me of like the invitation. At the beginning of the invitation, they're driving, they hit that like coyote, and there is something kind of symbolic there. But this was like, I guess, is that meant to interpret? Right. That's kind of like,
Get Out. They hit the deer, right?
Looking at this, am I just stretching? It's ultimately it's film. It's your interpretation. I just thought it was a cool moment of him being like, okay.
No, I don't think you are. I don't think you're stretching at all. I mean, like, I think
Right.
that the fact that it's intentionally in the dialogue that I decided to keep that moment for myself. Like, like
No, and
him
what I
saying
think is
that,
interesting,
like, there's more to it. There's room
the
for
thing I
discussion
think is
there,
interesting
absolutely.
is really just him.
But we're
saying,
not
I'm
going to
keeping
discuss
that
it,
moment
so
to
fucking move on.
myself of just like this is a moment where I don't know, basically to say that I didn't leave every single thing on the paper. Like some things are my own, and even though I was in a group, I was still an individual of that group. Like I didn't share every single thing. The shot, oh my god, where Chris Chambers is like, "Gentlemen, the Royal," and it's like you can see the sky, the mountains, I was like, oh my god, that is a breathtaking shot. It's about 1 hour 1 minute.
Beautiful. There's a shot earlier in the movie. Yeah, there's a shot earlier in the movie. It's like super wide, like it's incredibly wide, and just in the kind of like you see the four kids just enter the left side of the screen. It's just like, holy shit, man. Yeah. Just before we get to like the train sequence, and it's just, man, like talk about these four little kids who have no idea what they're in for. Just stepping out.
It feels like
this
four
big,
kids on the
brave new
mouth
world.
of like
I
the
love it.
undiscovered
It's awesome,
country.
man. The
There's
cinematography
something
is
cool
outstanding.
about that. I really dig. So eventually, they take a shortcut through this terrible idea through this. What they don't know is going to end up being a fucking body of water. But at the same time, we've got these guys spilling their guts about the Brower kid, and within an hour, there's Ace like, all right, we're going fishing. We're going to act like we're going fishing and stuff. But just the fact of like the scale that these guys think that they're on, like we're going to be on national TV, like blah, 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 and it's another moment for Ace just to be very two-dimensional, like get in the fucking car now. And it's like, okay, I get it. Like you're a badass. Like you're basically forcing these, like he's a blonde Henry Bowers, like basically, and this is a character out of like a lot of Stephen King stuff is the town bully is like a staple of his fiction. But basically we're now seeing them. What cracks me up is the fact that it takes Ace about 45 minutes to get here, and these kids have been walking for like 2 days. And I was like, dude, the time doesn't seem proportionate.
Right. Well, that's it. Like they talk about it, right? Like they talk about like, we could have taken a car, or like we didn't take a car or some shit, like, but that's also very very telling of the story, right? Like we were able to make this trek and learn a lot about each other and have this realizing moment where you just took a car and didn't learn anything about any of your friends. Like, like this is, the time that we spent together. Exactly right. The time that we spent with each other was on the journey and not about the destination. Whereas you're all about the destination.
It's also something of the fact that the work that they spend actually like walking like to there. It's almost like it's almost like a trip to Mecca. It's like a walking. It's like a walking trip, like somewhere of just like out of not
I'm sorry to interrupt you. My brother's bought me a Slurpee because it's like 100 degrees.
No, you all done? You all done? What kind of Slurpee did you get?
Sorry, this is staying in the episode, by the way.
What a nice brother, dude. How about dude? What a nice.
It is a Coke.
What a nice
Slurpee.
brother.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Honestly, good on him. Like, we do this shit for each other sometimes, and I'm sorry.
I was watching the movie on my laptop. I looked up and I just see somebody in the background, and I thought this was going to be a moment of like, there's somebody behind you, like run, like, but no, I was just, I'm totally now, I'm totally thrown off by the Slurpee. That just like almost like. That almost scared me. No, that almost scared me where I was like, "Oh fuck, there's somebody behind you." No, but I was saying like
sorry.
it's almost like
it's
like a journeyman trip. There's something about like it's like Frodo and Mr. Sam and the Fellowship taking the ring to Mordor. Like it feels like that. I love it.
Yes. I was thinking literally that same analogy because that's what that is what it must feel for these kids, right? It must feel like that's what I'm saying, like a journey across state lines, like like that's what it must feel. But it really, you kind of like you're not going too far just to see a dead body. But these kids are just kind of like stepping out into this world, and,
dude.
They're going to come across ring
probably
raids
the first time I'd ever heard or seen of a leech. I probably had no concept of what that was until I saw this movie, because I did see this movie
Oh, okay.
pretty young, but I can't remember when. But this scene is like, it's skin crawling. It makes me think of, have you seen Arachnophobia with Jeff Daniels? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty good. I think it's on Amazon Prime.
No.
I knew you were going to say eight-legged freak. There's a scene where a guy puts his foot in a slipper and the fucking spider's in the slipper and bites him, and it makes you like, I will forever check my shoes now because of this. But there's something about the fact of leeches of just that sucking, and everybody's fine. Then he looks down and he has one hanging on his balls, where it's like, just there's something so, especially when it comes to like a child, there's something so like violating about that, and I like just invite your personal space.
Yeah.
But fucking Vern,
Yeah. I had seen Anaconda by this point.
I think so.
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure in Anaconda they were like, they were like trying to get leeches off themselves, kind of thing. Yeah. But this is, dude, the way they kind of like test the height of the water, and like all
man,
four of them.
I never met nobody who passed out before. Not that I never seen somebody pass. I've never met anybody who passed out before. They all kind of talk about, are we going back? You're being a pussy, and Gordy kind of snaps everybody out of it. He's like, I'm fucking going. I'm not turning around. We get this great scene with Ace, with him playing chicken with the car. Again, this is like total Henry Bowers shit. And as they finally kind of get to this junction, this road that they're looking for, this old shit road or whatever the fuck it's called. And this is where they're like, Brower kid, he's got to be around here somewhere. And I heard, I'm not sure, I just kind of saw this on the internet, basically, that when they first see Ray Brower's body, that they hadn't shown them at all, like, what he was going to look like. So their reactions are the first time that they ever saw Ray Brower, like the actor.
I've heard this too. Yeah, I don't know if this is a legend or something, like a movie, kind of like movie making legend, or how true it is. But yeah, if that's true, dude, it's pretty wild. And like, that's not that kind of like out there for a Stephen King movie, right? Like, wasn't it in It?
Well, and that's
where they hadn't seen him in the makeup.
That's kind of like,
and they were all kind of like, what the fuck?
I think Tim Curry did the same thing in It, but there's a lot of them where like they just stay off set or they'll stay away just to kind of make them feel all creeped out and shit. But I like that as soon as they get there, they're like, hey, we're gonna make a stretcher, like blah blah blah. But they have this moment where it's like, they go over there and start looking for branches, and this is where we get that moment of like, we've had Chris's moment. Now it's time to get Gordy's moment, where it's like, man, you've got to break now it's your turn to break the fever. And there's something where does he really do either of them really come to like, no, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to tell my dad I'll be a dancer. It doesn't matter. You don't really have that moment, but it's the fact that, they're kind of young to have that moment. Right. The realization is believable with their age. If they were like, no, I'm going to go back and do this. But I'm like, dude, you're like 12. Calm down. You're going to, right.
Exactly. And I'm so glad that they don't have the
No, I was
going to
say, I think that goes back to your moment of like feeling just kind of like.
If we get the moment,
it's because there's no wind down from that. There's no, Gordy goes home and, tells his dad, like, fuck you. Like, my brother loved me and I am worse. It's the fact that we're just left with these problems and we see no resolution to it. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah. No, but that's what I'm saying. Like the fact that we don't get a resolution to them is, I think, what really makes this movie super unique. Like, like we get the realization of of these guys' issues at home, but it's them leaning on each other that really kind of like helps them through it. Like, like if they don't lean on each other, then I think this ends up being a really, really bad time in the future for Gordy. Like, I think without Chris's kind of like words here, I think without Chris's kind of like guidance, Gordy doesn't end up being the successful writer that he does.
Right.
Like, I think this weighs on Gordy a lot without Chris.
Right, because there's no Denny, and with no Denny,
he really needs
parents
Chris
are also
to be able
kind
to
of like alienating themselves from him, understandably. But the fact that there's nobody there being like, hey, no, you're okay, like you can do this. And you see that even in the society around him of like, what do you do? And to tell him like, oh, I write stories and stuff, they probably be like, queer, like they wouldn't. Yeah, it's a very two-dimensional like viewing of it. I also think there's something, he has his moment. He kind of is like, I'm no good. My dad thinks I'm full of shit, blah, blah. And they get through it to the point that when they start kind of moving on to like moving the body, I think there's something interesting in like what the body actually represents, where it's like, why, not even so much what the body represents, but why Gordy is like, and Chris are basically ready to like fucking die over this thing, that they're willing to like pull a gun on somebody and fire a pistol. There's something about the fact that like this is, you know, we're like the adult. I'm trying to think of the right way to describe it. Like seeing this kid that is their age dead right next to them is like, this is us kind of standing up to having our childhoods kind of ending a little too quickly, where it's like the realizations of stuff are like, you know, my brother's dead, my parents hate me, my dad's, you know, in a psych ward, you know, my dad is like, you know, doesn't, you know, thinks I'm a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of like them, even though these aren't adults, they're still doing it to minors, quote unquote, but these basically are adults. They drive cars, they represent all, you know, all of the stuff. So seeing them kind of stand up to that, to be like, no, like I'm not moving. It's like I have been pushed. I've been walking this whole time, and it's been pushing me to now I've gotten to a point where I've stopped, and I'm like, I'm not moving from this spot. I think that's something very, very interesting about that, of like standing up to the quote unquote more adult authority, you know?
Right. And Brower is a young boy. Like, you know, like he is a young boy who's lost his life at a very young age. And these kids are potentially staring down the barrel of not living past that age. Like, you know, like these kids are in very, very, I guess, probably Vern less so, but like they're all in kind of like a situation where our lives are not amazing. Like, you know, like our lives, like I guarantee you, Brower probably had a better life than three of these kids. Like, you know, like he was probably treated well at home. Like he was in a well-adjusted family. And his father was probably not a war vet, but like these kids are just like looking at the age of Brower and what age he is and just how young and youthful he was. And now they're just like looking up at this, like, you know, blank staring corpse and being like, holy shit, man. Like, is this kind of like what we have, like, is this what we have, you know, ahead of us? Like, you know, like, can we be better than this? Like, can we survive this? And sure, yeah, it was an accident that, like, you know, that he was hit by a train, but still, like, that is still such an everyday event that can happen.
Well, yeah,
to
and
anybody.
basically realizing
like,
that you have to at some point, like, this is
somehow
probably their first brush with like death, like in its rawest form of not like, maybe you didn't witness the death firsthand, but you're right. It's not a funeral. It's not, you know, everybody wearing nice clothes up. It's like you laying dead in a ditch. Yeah. You know, it's like that's brutal.
Right, because Gordy's been to his brother's funeral. Like, we've seen that. Like, that is a presented like way of death, like, you know, like of experiencing death. Like, that is very, you know, it's funerals are somewhat beautiful, right? I mean, like they're like, you know, they say a prayer, they lower them into the ground. Sure, people cry, but people, you know, there's flowers around and shit. But it's just such a filtered way to experience death for the first time. Whereas this is just like unapologetically like, here you go. Nobody's been here. This is undisturbed.
Right, yeah, it's
a guy
very,
who just got hit by a train,
it's raw and uncut. You know, he's like right there, right in front of you. Right. I mean, of course, I was like, right, without even hearing what you said. I was like, fuck.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm gay.
I'm just kidding.
I was like, right. Wait, fuck.
I totally missed that you said
we're pretty much sure this is where Ace and his gang kind of pop up. You know, we skipped over.
Do we talk? Do we miss the part where Ace plays chicken with that truck and just like fucking the truck? That truck just like fucking loses its entire load.
It's just
and
like
the guy
he's like 1940s arm shaking out the window.
Fucking has a heart attack.
Like, but yeah, it's that. I think I said like that Henry Bowers like moment of just psychopath. Probably the baddest line in this movie. That what are you gonna do? Shoot all of us? Nope. Just you, Ace. And it's like, oh, the fact that like your guys are so made of popsicle sticks and glass that like if I shoot one of you, you all will scatter. Which I mean, I don't blame them, but there's something about that of like, it's also something strange about the kids having a very adult device fighting off older people. There's something really crazy about that. And I mean, this movie, I don't want to say this movie never gets made today, but that scene is definitely not in there. That would definitely be cut out. You know, I think for the worse. The gravity of the scene is not, you know, it's not like, oh, look, just rampant loss of gun control. It's like, no, the scene revolves around that gun, and it's very heavy in the room of like, oh my God, like this could go off in any, especially once he cocks the hammer back and you're like, oh Jesus Christ, man, like this is, Will Wheaton over here gonna fucking, all 97 pounds of him soaking wet's gonna bust a cap and fucking Jack Bauer. But I love he walks off and he's like, suck my fat one, you cheap dime store hood. I was like, God damn, that is such like a 1930s, like,
Oh my God.
suck my fat one,
So
you cheap
good.
dime store hood. Like, whoever told you had a fat one? Biggest one in 4 counties.
Yeah.
That's a good. I like that Vern and Teddy then show up like, hey, what's going on? It's like, where the fuck have you guys been? Like, you just walked off and left us. What the fuck, man? A little solidarity. They're over there like with Ray Bauer. They have like puppet strings and like, ready, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to, and then just like baronetting him. But no, ultimately at the end, they're like, nobody's taking credit for it. The whole point is like, we're not, yeah, we could get our pictures in the paper. Yeah, we probably get some type of like special thanks or something. But at the end, we just ended up placing an anonymous call. Yeah, because it's not, I don't even really take anything big away from that other than the fact that like, it's just right.
Phone call,
There's nothing heroic or there's nothing to gloat about in that finding,
Mm-hmm. Right. There is like, talk about character growth. Like, the way they start this journey is that, like, we're going to get all the credit for this, blah, blah. And then, like, by the time they end there, they're just like, oh, fuck, this is not something to, take on a surface level. Like, like, this is a dead body. Like, this is someone who used to be alive, who used to have a life, and enjoyed things that we all enjoyed and probably more. So it's no longer just an object to us.
Which
so
leads
it's
to them,
important that
they
we
put
do
an
the right
anonymous phone call. They eventually get back into town. I like them all kind of, this Sandlot must have really like lifted this from, everybody's running the bases at the end and they start disappearing and stuff. Because that's basically what happens to Chris. He kind of walks off into the sunset and he disappears. But he's like, we never really saw those guys a lot that day. We might pass them in the hall, but eventually they just became, another face. Teddy went on to have a bunch of odd jobs. Apparently he was like drinking a lot, couldn't get into the army. What is it? What do they say? Vern ends up being like a forklift operator or something. I was like, dude, this guy surely is going to be like an insurance salesman. There's no way.
Yeah.
Friends come into your life like busboys in a restaurant. Vern got married out of high school, has 4 kids, and is a forklift operator.
Apparently, in the novella, in the body, they all died.
Splat
like it was a much, much darker.
I'm like, I got this book today. Hey, here's how it ends. Like
everyone except Gordy.
I know. Honestly, I'm not surprised.
Hey, fuck you, man. The book's been out for fucking
I love the
centuries
scene where
at this
they're
point.
He's like, I'm never going to get out of this town, Gordy. He's like, you can do anything you want, man. I like that a lot. And it's a nice little capper because it's, the fate that's about to happen. And once he walks away from this, we're not going to see Chris Chambers ever again. There's just that feeling of even having seen it the first time or the 10th time. There's just this like, oh man, don't turn around, don't walk away, because that's gonna it's that's one thing. I wish I could watch movies sometimes and be like, hey, what would happen if this happened? I'm just gonna punch this in here, like do some 90s internet hacking, like this is how it'd be if it happened. This, yeah, I'm in. He enrolled in college courses with me, although he wanted to quit. I always made him stick it out. He went into college and eventually became a lawyer. Last week he entered a fast food restaurant. Just ahead of him, 2 men got into an argument. One of them pulled out a knife. Chris, who always made the best bees, tried to break it up. He was stabbed in the throat and he died almost instantly. Like, holy fuck. Like, the graphic nature of that too. Like, it's not just like, oh, he got stabbed and he died. He got stabbed in the throat. Like, that's so specific. And it's
stabbed in the throat. Yeah. For me, it's the next line, dude. Like the next line, and these are the closing lines of the movie. Although I haven't seen him in more than 10 years, I know I'll miss him forever.
Yeah.
I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Jesus, does anybody? That line, dude, I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. That sticks with me because it's just like there and especially the thing about friends coming and going like just in your life like that is so true. Like that is just in my life especially I just the amount of friends that I made when I was in like working at the cinema and how like the people that I was close to I only speak to about 3 or 4 of them now. And, you know, they keep filtering in and out. And, like, some people are just like, hey, want to go catch up? Want to grab a coffee? Yeah, I'm just like, whatever, cool. And it's just like, man, we just don't hang out like we used to, you know? And it's just like that. The way this movie leaves that idea in my head when the credits start rolling, it's just like, God damn it, this is masterful. Like, this is a masterful moment in this movie. And this might be one of my favorite endings.
You know, seeing his kids walk in and be like, "Hey, Dad," you know, and he's like, "I realize that like I am not in the way of letting my son like enjoy these things right now, but I'm kind of like." I just wrote a whole story about how all of our dads are a piece of shit, and my son walks in and it's just like, hey, can we go now? Like, oh, he gets like this when he's writing. It almost reads when that kid's like, oh, my dad gets like that when he's writing. It almost reads as like, oh, man, you got to watch out. My dad gets like that when he's been drinking. Like, that's the first thing that came to mind. So I think he kind of realizes like, yeah, I should probably get out of the house now.
Yeah,
like, I've come to terms with this. And it's great. You know, you kind of see him close the book on, you know, I think there's something about when Denny dies, Chris becomes the surrogate. And even though he hadn't really seen him in 10 years, him dying almost brings closure to Denny's death in a way, too, of like who I kind of replaced you with just recently died. And maybe I didn't mourn properly for you. I just kind of replaced you with somebody because I was just a kid. I think there's something really interesting about that. I think it closes the book on both of those where he's, you know, basically saying, yeah, it's kind of a bookend. It's a strange situation, like one death kind of equaling up to 2 of them. But it's this interesting thing of like Denny and Chris and not only like how similar they are, but also how completely different they are. Where like, you know, he steals milk money and he's kind of like, you know, smokes cigarettes and he's like a foul-mouthed little kid. Denny's just like a perfect kid who's just like, hey, I changed a flat tire on the way to work and I helped some lady give birth to a baby. You know, it's almost like the perfect bullshit kid. Right. But, sorry, I was grabbing my drink. There's something about Chris that's almost better in a way because he is really 3-dimensional. But that's also, we get a lot more time for him than we do Denny. I just can't really be helped. But that's Stand By Me. Do you want to do comments or closing thoughts?
We'll do listener comments first
pulled up. You can go right
before
ahead.
we close off our thoughts. Do you have any open? Cool. I got Jose. Jose, our member of the Green Room. Thank you so much for commenting, Jose. He says, my dad is a Stephen King fan. He got me into reading King's books and would watch King movies and miniseries, and yet, for a long time, I had no idea this was based on a King story. I don't think I found out until my 20s or so. The good news is it led me to look out for other non-horror King stuff. And he puts in parentheses with his book On Writing being a personal favorite. The better news, I love this movie. While Ace has shown up in other King works, Kiefer Sutherland's portrayal is always the one I think of when
Needful
the character
Things.
appears. Really? Ace has appeared in
Yeah,
other...
and I totally, that's the only person
you
I can
mentioned
picture
earlier.
is Kiefer Sutherland.
What was that?
That's the only person I can picture is Ace Merrill.
Nice.
Let me see here. I'm going to go Floyd Fry. Floyd Fry from the Pop List podcast.
Right.
Great podcast. If you guys have not listened to them, please check them out. They're called The Pop List. Floyd's comment is very high on my list of best movies ever made. Strong words from a strong man. And I can't agree with him more.
Strong. And absolutely, dude. And I got one from Eric Mason.
Countdown
Mason,
to
who
Geektown.
co-hosts Countdown from Geektown. Countdown to Geektown? Countdown from Geektown. Fuck me. I'm a moron. Sorry, Eric. But he hosts that with another after party member of ours, Jesse Privet. Yeah. He says, this was my Goonies. Yeah, man. I mean, like, I can see the connective tissue, right? I mean, like, they're both kind of like road movies, like the kids are trying to get somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I forgot about that.
And also Corey Feldman, right? That's the connective tissue, I guess.
Yeah, and I tell you, I'm just going to knock these last 2 out real quick with Patrick and Andrew Smith. Mm-hmm. Patrick Harrington, Kiefer Sutherland can play a great asshole. Like, that's very true. Andrew Smith, I watched it when I was 10, even though I got really bent out of shape by mailbox baseball. I mean, what if my electric bill is in there? You ever turned your AC off when you ever get your AC turned off when the average daily temperature is 95 degrees and it's November? That's hilarious. That sounds like a personal story. But that's pretty much it for the comments.
That does. Yeah. That does. Just quickly, actually, very briefly, I didn't get my like when we were younger. We went to a family trip up to Queensland, and then we get a call from our neighbor. My dad gets a call from the neighbor, and he's just like, Yeah, so I just got off the phone from our neighbor.
What the fuck?
and,
Like your neighbor's
someone
mailbox?
put fireworks in our mailbox.
Oh God.
Dude, no, in our mailbox while we were away. And we were just like, what the fuck? That is so wild. And we come back and the mailbox, it's just blown up. It's just a stump. Just
It's not
there.
like, they set off a cherry
It was
bomb or whatever. It's
actually,
like,
you know,
no,
in
they blew
hindsight,
your
it's actually kinda
mailbox
hilarious,
up.
But like, yeah, like at the
I do. We used to roll houses
Yeah, it was
and stuff
fucking
like that. We would
crazy,
just
man.
grab somebody who had a
Yeah.
pool and throw a can of like Gatorade powder in their pool. You know, like stuff like that. You know, like and we would just pick a house at random. Like you never fucking know. But the
nice.
you know, getting finishing up with listener comments, moving on to final thoughts. I mean,
Right.
what can I say that I haven't really already said? I think this is a damn near perfect movie. If this is not a perfect movie, it's very, 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 very close. I really love to see Rob Reiner and Stephen King work together. I think it's such a disappointment when like John Carpenter and Stephen King only did Christine, and actually John Carpenter was going to do Firestarter, but because The Thing bombed, he didn't get Firestarter. And I was like, that's such bullshit, dude. Like Firestarter, the movie kind of sucks, and I don't know if John Carpenter making it would make it a lot better. It's a Dino De Laurentiis thing. But either way, I really always bemoan the fact that I never got to see them work together a lot. But I always love seeing the Rob Reiner, who is in Wolf of Wall Street. Oh my God, he's who the fuck is calling this house on a Tuesday night? Yeah, it's like
I was just about
Charlie.
to say that. Yeah.
Like,
I'm trying to watch The Equalizer. Yeah, he puts on that fake British accent, but like, no, dude, like I love when they've got the receipt.
Yeah.
and then
Only
he's
an
just
idiot.
Like, $6,000
He's like,
on sides, and then he's just like, what is this? EJ Entertainment. What is that? That's a little,
only an idiot gets an
TNA.
escort service and puts it on a card. Like, what an idiot. But yeah, I love this movie. I love Rob Reiner. There's a really fantastic, he did Princess Bride as well. And there was like a celebrity.
I was about to talk about this. We didn't talk about Rob Reiner a lot, and I think it's because we talked about him very briefly when we did Misery.
Right.
But man, is he he's a director that we don't give enough love to, dude. Like A Few
Right.
Good Men.
Yeah, it's huge.
A Few Good Men is a fucking incredible movie.
Dude,
I love A Few Good Men.
his dad, Carl Reiner, was like a
This is
legend.
Spinal
And I
Tap
know
as
Rob
well?
Reiner is as well, even acting and some stuff and doing a lot of writing. But yeah, he really doesn't get enough credit for what he's done. I mean, the wide array of stuff that he's done, of comedies, of coming of age movies, of horror movies. And it's like, dude, you've done a lot of really, really cool shit. A courtroom drama with like A Few Good Men. Like that's nuts. That's such a crazy array of stuff. But I really love this movie.
And Oscar winning, yeah.
I don't really have any complaints about it other than maybe the relationship it seems like a little bit too like, I don't know. It just seems like these right. Well, self-aware and like they're very, very, very open. Like, and I'm like, I was just not that like, I don't, I never really would sit with my friends and be like, man, it's just, I had friends like that I would talk to sometimes, but like, that's not, not every single one of my friends like knows all my, there's certain friends that you feel more comfortable confiding in. And that number was very few people for me. But ultimately, and there is something almost, I think, kind of unbelievable about it because the time period that they're in, like I feel like these kids, if you're in 1959, you're like grabbing somebody and they'd be like, dude, get off me. What are you, gay? Like, it's like, this is the 50s and the 60s. Like, I feel like that would be kind of a given.
Right. You know what? I thought about that, especially like towards the end when it's him. Sorry, it's Gordy and Chris, and they're just kind of like they've got their arms around each other,
Right.
like sitting on the log, staring at the body, and I'm just like, maybe they are gay. Like I don't like, but it's not like it's nothing that absolutely
Right.
detracts from the movie for me. Like I wonder if it's actually kind of ambiguous as well. Like I wonder if they are kind of like. I wonder if there is something there, and we
Right.
just
No, it really
they don't
wouldn't surprise me. It
explicitly tell
honestly
you, but,
wouldn't.
Like, maybe you can take that away
Like I
from it
said,
as well.
damn near perfect movie. Love Rob Reiner, love Stephen King, and I can't wait to do another Stephen King one. I'm not going to wait that long again. I'm definitely not going to wait that long again. Think
Can you
out of all the
just-
Stephen
just
King stuff that
if
we've
I
done,
hear
though,
the
we
word
did
Stephen
Misery,
King
which
together
is a
again,
horror,
I'll
but
lose my
not
mind.
like a typical King thing. And then we've done Stand By Me. And it's like, well, we knocked out two of Reiner's ones. I guess we'll have to start on Darabont soon,
So anyway, kidding. No, this was a lot of fun, man. Like this is like sitting down and turning on a movie and knowing you're about a podcast about it,
Right.
and seeing that it's only 84 minutes long is just one of the best things in the world. But not only that, man, like the way that it uses its 84 minutes and the way that it tells you its story is just so quick and it's so heartfelt, and like the performance is absolutely incredible and Reiner's direction is so strong. This, again, you can take this on two levels. If you're watching this as a kid, this could be just, watching another group of kids like getting up to hijinks, much like Goonies, right? But like, unlike Goonies, you can also watch it as an adult and be like, holy shit, man, like this is a movie about reflecting on your past, and like, recognizing that, holy shit, man, like the guy that I was
Right.
best friends with when I was younger saved my life, like potentially saved my life and made me who I am today. And like, man, that is deep to me, and that is heartbreaking and also heartwarming. But ultimately, I think the reason I don't come back to this movie a lot is because it just leaves me kind of cold at the end. Like, like the movie is just, it's kind of depressing. Like, it's kind of like your adulthood will not be as good as your
Right.
childhood. And that to
Right.
me is just like, oh, damn it. God damn it. That's true. It's fucking true. And that's just the meaning of life. Like, like we all get older, we all start doing different things, we all separate from our childhood friends. We stop having the experiences we did as children, and it just happens, man. But yeah, man, this is an absolutely fantastic movie. I'm glad you chose it. I'm glad we covered it.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
probably one of the ones that was like inevitable, like we were kind of always going to cover. And yeah, I think this is an absolutely almost perfect movie, dude. Like I see what you rub up against, in terms of the kids being very open with each other and being very self-aware of the situations they're in. That doesn't really bother me too much. Because I think, again, you kind of need that to be able to tell this story. So it doesn't really, it is, well, yes, unrealistic. Right. It also feels like somewhat of a fairy tale. Like, the story of like these kids like going across country, or not even across country, like, just not going too far and finding a dead body just seems like something that someone would tell around a campfire. Like, they'll be just like, so there was Gordy LeChance and Teddy DeChamp and I don't know, like it just seems very fantastical to me. A lot of it feels fantastical to me. But yeah, man, I think this is an absolutely fantastic movie. It's an all-timer.
Oh yeah.
It is probably in my top 3 King movies. Probably my third, actually.
Right, yeah.
I mean, like, I can't say that I've
don't go
seen
watch
all of his
Sleepwalkers. Jesus
adaptations,
Christ.
but
Actually watch
I've seen
it.
the good
It's
ones.
so good.
I've seen
It's
the
so
main
bad
ones.
it's good.
I'm good. I'm good. I've actually never seen Cujo, but anyway. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Well,
Guys,
that's
if you
it,
want
man.
to check us out, you can
That's
find us
Stand
on
By Me. I fucking
Facebook
loved
at
it.
Midnight Double
Thank you so
Feature.
much for
There's
picking
also a group attached to that called the After Party. Everybody's invited. You can find us on Twitter at MDF Pod. You can also find us on our Instagram at Midnight Double Feature. You can shoot us an email, midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com. Any requests, any constructive criticism, we'd always love to hear from you guys. Also, please stop by and check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Midnight Double Feature. We have everything on there, including our Breaking Bad podcast, our merch, whole lot of stuff on there. That's our center hub if you guys ever need anything. And stop by, rate, review us on iTunes. Let us know how we're doing. If you can't sign up for the Patreon, at least stop by, rate and review us. It helps out the show. Hey, and it's free. So we hope you guys have enjoyed this episode, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.